For the month of December, get 25% off your first month or your first year of a membership to the Second Wind Patreon. Supporting independent games media means you get more biting games criticism like this.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rewind, episode number 36 for Tuesday, December 16th, 2025. Marty Supreme here, joined by Darren Mooney, Jack Packard, and producer Eric on our final show of 2025. Arguably the greatest year in human history. Nothing went wrong. No sad news stories to talk about. Ending on a high note.
And certainly
we're all
keep
thriving.
Going better into 2026, right? Momentum is heading in the right direction, right?
Listen, as long as we all have a roof over our heads, then everything will be fine. Oh no, Darren's roof.
Oh no, your roof.
That was a joke at the fact that A, everything is terrible, and B, Darren's roof just decided to end it all.
B is a subset of A, to be fair. Like it's not as if everything is great. Everything is awful, aside from Darren's roof falling in, which we're all very happy about.
Exactly. But we will hopefully be able to turn this into a entertaining podcast. A couple of topics we wanted to touch on today, including a quick mention of Rob Reiner, the tragic story of him and his wife's murder, and the kind of incredible legacy and run he left, especially in his run of movies through the 80s and first half of the 90s, kind of unparalleled there. So we'll talk about that. Darren, you just had an incredible episode of The Backdrop Go up this morning, trying to make some semblance of sense of the Warner Brothers slash Netflix slash Paramount throuple that's going on over here.
Consolidation, mergers and acquisitions.
Murders and executions. Yeah, we won't solve this. We won't make anyone feel better about this, but at the very least, we'll have like a spaced event, which is always nice.
I love, by the way, that you imply that somewhere David Zaslav just pauses in his limousine. Is just like, no, new episode of The Rewind. I think these guys will crack it this week.
I think the boys will be behind me this time. I know they've been a little judgmental in the past, but I think this is the one they'll like.
Yeah, when they give praise, I know it will be validating. Like that's the thing, you know. It's like I
genuinely do think because a lot of these acquisitions and a lot of these movements do feel like darts on a dartboard. Mm-hmm. I really genuinely think, not listening to our show, but there are executives out there just listening to podcasts saying, I hope someone has a good idea. Jesus Christ, someone needs to have a good idea.
You know that they're just asking ChatGPT to listen to podcasts for them. That's the future. Was it Joe Rogan? This love to invoke. We're really invoking all the great guys on this podcast. Yeah. Was it Joe Rogan who's like, yeah, man, I love like AI movies. I love AI music. And his guest like, yeah, I love AI podcasts. Like, whoa.
Yeah. I didn't think the leopard would come and eat my face. Could you imagine an AI? I can't imagine anything sadder than an AI podcast.
Right.
They exist apparently, and they're flooding feeds.
Of course.
That's the thing. Which is, to be honest, great for human podcasts because it means you get bumped up immediately in terms of ranking. You know, we've gone from being in the top 5% of podcasts to being in the top 1% because there's so much sludge on the bottom now. It's great.
That is true. That is very true. I like that. And then we'll talk about all sorts of stuff we've been watching, and including
Eric.
Course,
by the way, like
season.
Eric on his game there on the corner of the screen. That's some quick action from Eric.
That's also clearly an
AI podcast episodes listeners loved in 2020.
That's also clearly an AI written article as well. It's just like AI stroking off AI. Everything is truly terrible. So we'll just start in one corner of terrible and then slowly make our way to the other corner. And hopefully by the end, we'll talk about stuff we've been watching. And hopefully some of the stuff isn't terrible. Although getting a little sneak preview behind the curtains, I think something Jack and I watched, Jack did not enjoy.
Something both Marty and I watched, Jack thought was terrible.
Cool trailer, though.
Great trailer.
Cool trailer.
Great trailer.
Marty recommended. Yeah, I think Marty was
solely based on the trailer. Trailer was cool.
I love immediately backing off that. It's like I recommended the trailer. I said you should watch the trailer. Anything else is on you.
It was. I didn't watch the movie yet. We'll talk about that later. First, do wanna just touch briefly on the tragic Rob Reiner news. Rob Reiner. Obviously, we don't have to go into detail about the specifics of everything that happened with him and his family, but just the run of movies that he had behind the camera in the 80s and 90s, going from Spinal Tap to Stand By Me to The Princess Bride to When Harry Met Sally to Misery to A Few Good Men in the span of 6 years. Like the ping-ponging of genre, and not only ping-ponging genre, but creating some of the like seminal pieces in those genres of all time in a 6-year span is staggering.
I love, by the way, that you stopped at North, which was what if Rob Reiner, like, instead of making like a courtroom drama or romantic comedy, just decided to make like the worst movie of all time. It's like, I can master this too.
That was the one I never actually saw. That was the one where like Elijah Wood. What's it called when a child divorces their family?
Emancipates. He emancipates.
Yeah,
and he moves around and he has all these different celebrity parents, basically.
Yeah,
very famous for the Ebert review. I hated this movie. Hated it. Hated it. Just incredible. Like, this is back when you were publishing stuff in newspapers, by the way. This wasn't just a blog. This is Ebert in his column being just so we're clear. Hated it.
Roger, tell us how you really felt.
But an incredible run. Like, Rainer's just one of the great filmmakers. I mean, you mentioned This Is Spinal Tap. That was his first feature film, which is stunning. To imagine making This Is Spinal Tap, a movie that obviously not the first mockumentary, but the film that kind of defined the modern mockumentary, and then just like carrying on like from there. And you mentioned like the films that he's made. Like, we talk a lot, and obviously not to preemptively segue into the conversation we're gonna have later, but when we talk about like the kinds of movies that don't exist anymore, they're the kind of movies that like Reiner was just like knocking out, where it's like, I miss romantic comedies. Well, Reiner made When Harry Met Sally. I miss like good mid-budget thrillers. That's Misery. I miss courtroom dramas. That's A Few Good Men. I miss, whimsical family fantasies that aren't entirely irony poisoned. That's The Princess Bride. I miss nice coming of age stories. That's Stand By Me, where it's just like, it is this kind of relic of a system that no longer exists, where a director could just like hop from one style of film to another and just be like, yeah, I tried my hand at that and I managed to single-handedly define the genre, but even if I didn't, I made a really good example of it, and I can hop on and I can do something else. There is not the only franchise that he was attached to was like Spinal Tap, and his last movie, This Is Spinal Tap 2, which released only a couple of months ago, that's his first franchise film. He managed to go an entire career without making like a franchise film. Unless you count Rumor Has It as a secret like sequel to The Graduate or whatever. But like, it is remarkable that sort of career just does not exist anymore. Like, that length and breadth and body of work and that variety of work is impossible to imagine in the current studio landscape, because these movies don't exist anymore for directors to get to make them. And directors don't have the freedom to make them, because like, after he had if he today made This Is Spinal Tap as a micro budget indie for, A24 or Neon, the first thing they do is they tap on the shoulder and say, hey, do you want to do our Captain Marvel reboot? Like, that would be the career path. It no longer exists that he can just go, no, it's 1989. I want to make like the Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan romantic comedy that we all watch at New Year's,
Yeah.
Right. The like genre defining, like When Harry Met Sally, a remarkable rom-com. And obviously rom-coms existed before that. Rom-coms existed after that. And rom-coms still are made today, but they're not made with the care that they were once made.
Well, they're not made for theaters anymore. They're made for streaming. They're made to be watched on a second screen. They're made to be movies like, and again, I love like Set It Up. I think Set It Up is a really charming romantic comedy, but that is not a theatrical comedy. That's a movie that's designed to be watched, I watch it while I'm not scrolling my phone, but it's designed to be watched so you can scroll your phone while you're watching it, Whereas this is a movie that is designed to take the whole of your attention for 90 odd minutes, however long it runs, and expects to hold it in a way that modern rom-coms don't, because modern rom-coms just don't go to theaters. And it's incredible because there is obviously a hunger for it. You mentioned like Anyone But You was like Anybody But You was a massive hit, the Sydney Sweeney Glenn Powell movie, a year and a half ago, because audiences love these movies. Audiences want to see these movies, but studios don't want to make these movies anymore because, the upside on them is like you maybe double the budget, and it's like, if you're only doubling $30 million, what's the point? You could be spending $500 million and getting like $100 million back in return if it goes well.
If this isn't going to hit Chinese Zootopia money, then then what's the point of even making this?
Even bother.
Yeah.
Out of the many people sharing the many clips of Rob Reiner over these past couple of days, the one that I locked onto was like an interview he did on a talk show about the ending of When Harry Met Sally. And when he first, wrote and started making the movie, he was a single man. He, divorced his first wife, was single for like 10 years and was very, very cynical. In the original ending of Harry Met Sally, they part ways, never to get together, because that's how he felt. While in mid-production, met the woman that would later become his wife, fell in love, and was like, wait a minute, we gotta change the movie, kids. Which is also a thing I don't think happens much anymore, of just like an artist, a captain of a ship just being like, you know what? Let's rewrite this ending.
Maybe I was having a bad day. Maybe love can triumph overall.
But also, like, to do that today, you'd have to go through 12 rounds of studio executives. They're like, no, we already test screened it. We already did, like, the famous story about, like, The Princess Bride, where, like, the first test screening results for that movie were disastrous. And, like, the way that Reiner got around it was by, like, arranging a second test screening for college audiences, and those test scores for The Princess Bride were through the roof. And he's like, well, look, now you got 2 results. They're indecisive. I guess you better let me make my movie. And very famously, like, we talk about, like, it's not necessarily the fairest way to talk about, like, this body of work. But, like, it is still, like, it is an interesting prism in the context of what is happening at the moment. But, like, The Princess Bride is released in theaters and it bombs, it underperforms massively, but we have a system in place at the time to ensure that that movie can continue to generate revenue for the studio through various forms, whether airing on television by leaving licensed to television stations, or being rented on, VHS back in the day, sold on VHS back in the day, where, like, Reiner's talked about the absurdity of, he's having lunch with a friend 10 years after Princess Bride comes out, and he gets a phone call from a studio executive. It's like, just want you to know, today Princess Bride went in the black. We're all clear. 10 years ago, you made a movie. We're now completely square. Anything after this is just complete profit for us. It's like, that is a system that no longer exists. And that is why you no longer get movies like The Princess Bride. Because, like, even if you made The Princess Bride and it didn't test well, and it released and it didn't perform to expectations, you could still count on a long enough curve, the movie being profitable enough to justify its existence. Now, like, that movie goes straight to streaming and it just drops off a cliff and it just does not exist at all. And nobody finds it and nobody discovers it and nobody loves it. It doesn't even become the classic that it is today, because it's buried under piles of other crap. Would you rather watch, like, Jay Kelly or, like, Frankenstein or I'm naming good Netflix movies.
Yeah, why are you dunking on these two?
Or Jay Kelly, set in an alternate universe where the Coen brothers are the biggest filmmakers of all time.
if only. Rob Reiner also, I didn't think the movie was very good, and I'm sure didn't coin the term, but at the very least popularized the term bucket list. Right? Bucket list.
It's
I feel like we weren't talking about bucket lists beforehand, and that movie's bad. The movie's not good.
I mean, that is also the thing about Reiner, is that, like, as much as he is an incredible director and one of the great Hollywood filmmakers, it's interesting how there's a certain point in his career where it seems like a switch just kind of flips. And it's like you had, like, one of the greatest filmmakers. Like, if he had ended his run, as you mentioned, like, after A Few Good Men, but even after, say, the American President, which is actually, like, quite a charming movie, that it would have been an all-timer career. And he just, like, continues making movies. He makes, like, Rumor Has It, which, as we mentioned, is, like, the graduate origin story you didn't know you needed because you didn't actually need it. The Bucket List, So It Goes. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I think we talked about, like, LBJ, the Woody Harrelson biopic about
the movie I refused to believe actually existed, because I was like, I didn't know this was real.
Despite photographic evidence to the contrary, yes. But, like, again, the fact that Reiner had enough of a run in his early career that he could just, like, continue making movies, that he had enough freedom. He had put enough cash in the bag. It's very similar to Zemeckis. He had, in the early run of his career, enough people, enough money, that there was just this expectation of, well, look, as long as the movie is reasonably budgeted, you can do whatever you want, and you might have a late career masterpiece, or you might not. And I will say, I did enjoy Spinal Tap 2. We talked about it. It's a very nice movie. I was like surprised. It's more moving than it is funny. It's like wonderfully sincere. It's obviously a bunch of friends hanging out together and enjoying each other's company, and it's hard to begrudge that, even outside the. It was hard to begrudge that, like, just the best, just these people who enjoy each other's company.
Absolutely.
But again, that would never happen today. He makes North or The Ghosts of Mississippi or The Story of Us, and his career is over. He's directing episodes of, like, I don't know, the Shonda Rhimes spin-off, whatever's running on ABC. He's doing Doc Odyssey. He's doing, like, the 6th episode, the first season of Doc Odyssey. Hollywood is just not built in the way that it was, and you lose so much because of that. And, like, I know we shouldn't be talking about that while talking about Reiner. We should talk about, like, his career.
Sure.
It's incredible, like, incredible, man.
Incredible
Incredibly talented,
career.
incredibly.
Well, okay, here's my question thinking about it. Was Rob Reiner the first good Nepo baby?
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Like, everyone
Take that, John Quincy Adams.
Like, obviously started his career acting, kind of got a leg up because of his dad, Carl Reiner.
Lon Chaney Jr. found dead in a ditch. Yeah.
I feel like this was the time when we started to get good Nepo babies, though. This was like Michael Douglas, a good Nepo baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the American president. Put some respect on his name, please.
Yes. Wow, a couple of Nepo babies cutting it up.
getting together. But I get just apparently, like, incredible. Like, there's this story, was it Tom Cruise? Tells about, like, watching Reiner work, where he'd be like, he'd never met a director who was, like, so invested in the actors, who was like, not only able to make his actors great, but almost willing them to be great. Where Cruise tells the story about, like, how when Reiner was watching these scenes, he would be mouthing the dialogue as the actors were, which is just an incredibly sweet thing to imagine, as if, like, willing the performance out of Billy Crystal or Meg Ryan. It's like, everybody who worked with him loved him so dearly, which is incredible. And in the industry, as the industry is, that's hard to believe. It's very hard to be that universally beloved. Just an incredible filmmaker, an incredible body of work, an incredible talent.
Yeah, and even reading stories that I never knew until they kind of surface now, but that so Castle Rock Entertainment, his production company, they had the rights to Good Will Hunting, the original script, and in the original script, it was like a thriller where they were, like, stealing secrets from the government. And he was like, this whole thing, your relationship with this therapist, maybe you should make the movie about that. And sure enough, that's why the movie's remembered, and that kind of put the two of them in the mouth. Yeah. So that was funny, but massive loss by all accounts, seemingly like a not only a wonderful artist, but, like you mentioned, a great person. So
if anyone is looking for a phenomenal feel bad time now, Rob Reiner narrates the audiobook for The Princess Bride. And does a phenomenal job of it. Obviously, it's something that's very close to his heart. But if you're looking for a good listen, and now a very bittersweet listen, you can listen to that. It's really wonderful.
That's a great reco. So
there
you go. Okay, before shifting over to more bad news of the Warner Brothers Netflix stuff, we'll go over a couple of super chats. Thank you so much. Quintuple A with a $5 dono. Thank you, Quintuple. What would it take for indie movies to have a renaissance similar to indie games? Or are we in one and I'm not paying enough attention? I feel like the mediums are too different to be able to one-to-one. Like... Silk Song has proven that that two people can make something that ends up being regarded as one of the best games of a year/generation, whereas two people cannot make a movie. I mean, I'm sure two people could make a movie, but I don't think it would be the kind of movie that bubbles up to the top. I don't know. Am I wrong about that?
I think the issue with indie movie studios is that the trend, like everything under capitalism, the push is to get bigger and to grow and expand. So the issue is that like you have companies that begin as indie companies. Like for example, Lionsgate used to be a small indie studio, but then all of a sudden they make a bit of money and they're in the franchise game. They make so money, and all of a sudden they're like, we can get Hunger Games money, we can get John Wick money, and all of a sudden that becomes their entire business model, which is insane. You have at the moment you've A24, which for the past decade has been held up as like, it is a type of movie, an A24 movie. It is an aesthetic. It is a mood. It is a vibe, but it is representative of a certain kind of hipster filmmaking. But where are they going? They're spending $50 million making Civil War. Marty Supreme is the most expensive movie that they've made. They're opening a games division. They're doing an adaptation of Elden Ring. The push is always to get bigger and to grow and to expand. You have like the Ellisons, who obviously we're going to segue into talking in a minute. For a while, they're working in, again, in the indie sphere. They're helping like finance. Did they help finance? Was it like Zero Dark 30 and stuff like that? Like there's a while.
Sounds about right.
Megan Ellison,
like just a sprinkle a little propaganda.
A little bit, yeah. It does
bit.
feel. It has a little bit of that Ellison tinge to it.
Yeah.
But like they were like funding indie movies in the early like 2010s or whatever, and it's like, with it by the end of the decade, they're like, no, my daddy's gonna buy Paramount for me. Like trend is always bigger, and it will always push up, because if you're a studio that makes indies, you're always precarious, and you're always like one bad movie release away from not existing. So the market pushes you to be like, no, we need security, we need franchises, we need to be a mini major, and if we're a mini major, we need to be a major.
Well, even when you look at the kind of the definitive like pull yourself up by your bootstrap indie movies that really hit, those directors, and a lot of them end up like following leads to the Odyssey, like that kind of Sydney in Heart 8 leads to One Battle After Another, like Brick leads to Star Wars. Like there's most directors that we know of, they may start small, but I think they have aspirations for big.
Yeah, I mean, like Kevin Smith, somebody in the comments is mentioning Clerks. Kevin Smith, one of the indie babies of the 90s, within half a decade, he's writing a Superman movie that does not exist. But that's what he's running a He-Man TV show, That is sort of like, that is where you're pushed, because why would you stay in indie? If you stay in indies and you fail, there's no bottom. Whereas if you make a major film and you fail, you can at least go away to indies and then come back. Like that's the thing with Nolan, where everyone's like, we want Nolan to make a smaller film, and he's like, I want you to understand, I'm the only guy who gets to make movies like this, and if I choose to stop, nobody will get to make these movies anymore. So that's true. Which is it's admittedly a self-serving argument, because I feel like you want to make those movies and you're rationalizing it a little bit, but there is that sense of like, if you get the chance to make that leap, why wouldn't you take it? If you get the bigger canvas, why wouldn't you take it? Though, as the problem is that's squeezed out. Like the Greta Gerwig is the one that I think about. Now, I am sympathetic to Gerwig, where Gerwig, to my mind, has always been somebody like a Spielberg or a Nolan. Her sensibility has always been populist. It's always been pushing towards wanting to make big, accessible movies. But she begins making like Lady Bird and Little Women, and those movies are beloved by a generation of, particularly of like young women. I know like lots of women in my life who like fell in love with Lady Bird and fell in love with Little Women, because you don't see stories like that often from that perspective, that well told, that sweet and that sincere. And they're like, why is Greta Gerwig making a Barbie movie? And why is Greta Gerwig making 3 Narnia movies? And like, I understand exactly why, because she has the Spielberg gene. Like, she wants to be big and populist entertaining. But I'm also like, that means that you lose Gerwig. You don't have anybody else in that ecosystem, because once you lift somebody up, you don't fill the space automatically. It is very depressing.
It feels like Steven Soderbergh is one guy who still like will occasionally, like, maybe it's cosplaying, but he'll occasionally be like, I made this movie on my phone. Like, you probably didn't have to, but that's neat.
Well, the thing about Soderbergh is Soderbergh had like the arc of like trying to make like, is it like Solaris? Is that like the big what if I could take like this landmark of Soviet cinema, this famously inaccessible movie, and I cast like George Clooney in it, and it costs $100 million? Will people turn out to see it? The answer is no. And it's like, fine, back to indies I go, with the occasional like Oceans movie along the way to top up my bank account. But yeah, like I do get the sense that if Solaris had landed, like, would we be looking at? Like, would he be making one battle after another if Solaris had landed? That's the kind of question.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I think the big difference here, and we'll Darren delves really nicely into this, into your backdrop, and we'll delve into this more when we talk about the acquisitions and mergers. But the difference between indie games and indie movies is distribution. The thing that made indie games viable was they were on the exact same platform as the AAA games. With Steam, with the Xbox Live Arcade, you could download an indie game just as easy as you could download Call of Duty. In fact, easier because they were smaller and cheaper.
Yeah.
And so what I will ask of everyone is, if we zoom out a little bit, this is a part of a larger theory of like kind of where our generation of filmmakers went, which is like we're getting our indie filmmakers, but they're making YouTube videos. They're making different content and they still do get to be indie. It's just different than movies.
Yeah.
But Jack, then you have the route of like you have going to like Shelby Oaks, and if Shelby Oaks is successful, I can guarantee you he's making a Conjuring movie. Like the arc is like you're starting at a different rung, but the arc still I think trends in that. Like the Backrooms is happening, for example.
Yes.
You have obviously Kogonada. Like Kogonada goes from making
Markiplier's Iron Lung is happening.
But we also have Dan Trachtenberg, right?
Yeah,
who kind of like came from there. So.
Yes,
Trachtenberg but
again, like Trachtenberg is now in a major franchise.
Oh yeah.
To get to the point of like the arc is always going to push you up. Like
I think like we will always have kind of that pipeline, which also, by the way, I think is a good pipeline because I want creative people to get paid, but also. We have to widen our scope of where indie filmmakers are right now. They're not just making films; they're making shorts. They're making little comedy skits.
Yeah, and I also like don't bemoan that arc, because that arc, while sometimes leads to like what's the guy who originally was directing Rise of Skywalker?
Josh Trank. Oh, okay. So Colin Trevorrow.
Colin Trevorrow or Josh. A lot of good examples there of people who started in low budget and then kind of couldn't.
Yeah.
Without sounding mean, couldn't hang. However,
hold on, Marty. You're talking about a guy who directed 2 billion-dollar Jurassic Park movies.
That is
I love
true.
That you're like, Colin Trevorrow can't cut it, and it's like,
they're bad.
But they're terrible. They're some of the worst movies ever made.
But the point I'm trying to make is,
how do you
but
sleep
then
at night like Colin on a big pile of money?
But Rian Johnson gave me my favorite Star Wars movie since the 80s. Christopher Nolan is making some of the most exciting blockbusters out there. We got Sinners this year from someone who started with Fruitvale Station. So like, sometimes that could be good.
In order for the industry to survive as we like it, which is, movies in movie theaters, what we really need is we need a Steam. We need someone who can be a distributor for very small films to get them into theaters. It's those pipelines that are breaking down. You
don't think Netflix got that?
We'll get into that.
Also, there's actually one of the things I watched.
One of those minor studios like makes a little bit of money. They're like, what? Here, you know what's cool? $1,000. You know what's really cool? $10,000. You know what's really cool? $5 billion. In, baby.
A24 was like spit and gum horror movies, and now it's like, we are making Elden Ring, and we made Civil War.
But what we Shudder, who I love, are like, we made a bit of money distributing like movies and independent horrors, and they're already in. But what if we make them? Now they're in. What if we make them and there are stars in them? An event like within the next 5 to 10 years, you're gonna start seeing big Shudder like franchises. You're gonna see like something like Shudder's Friday the 13th or some sort of Shudder's Puppet Master. Shudder's like Silent Night, Deadly Night. Did they distribute like Silent Night, Deadly Night?
They did distribute Silent Night.
Yeah. Shudder's reflection in a Dead Diamond universe, Jack.
Okay, I'm out of movies in general.
But no, also, again, we'll get to it later when we talk about what we've been watching. I checked out one of the Letterboxd Video Store movies, which we'll talk about that later. So another new way to distribute movies that don't have a distributor. So yeah,
movies you can't access any other way, which is incredible.
Yeah, exactly, which is very cool. That was one super chat. Snake, it was a good super chat though. It was like a little topic. Snake of the Garden, thank you so much for a €2 donor. More bad news: Disney licensing to OpenAI. Yeah, that story. Like, fucking, what are we doing? Yeah. What are we doing?
You may as well be complicit in the destruction of the ecosystem. You may as well lean in, right? It's like lean in capitalism. But I mean, are we that surprised? Like, this is the thing where I'm going to say something vaguely controversial, which is like, AI is not just a technological problem, it is a cultural problem, and a large part of that cultural problem is rooted in the way that we think about media in general, where we don't think about art, we don't think about films, we don't think about TV shows, we think about content, we think about universes, we think about intellectual property, and like Disney as a company are a large part of that. Like, I do a bit of a broadside at Disney in the video that we released today, where I make the point that like Disney as a company has never been artist forward, despite the fact that it has been built on the backs of artists, despite the fact that artists have done incredible work with Disney. Disney as a corporation has always been the property, the brand, the idea. And it's like, everybody else is interchangeable. We will fire a director off a project that's not working. We will have a director come in and fix it in post. We will do whatever it takes to get this released to preserve the brand. And OpenAI is just an extension of that philosophy, which is like, what if the property didn't need an artist? What if the property didn't need a creator? What if, like, Elsa from Frozen didn't need a pesky unionized writer to come up with dialogue for her, or an arc, or a story? What if we could just, like, get OpenAI to pay us, and they would generate lots of content, which, you know, we will own in some capacity, and we will exert control over, but we get to profit from. We get to exploit this labor. And by the way, to be clear, we didn't create Elsa. Elsa's not our creation. She exists in the public domain. She's the work of writers and artists and directors and stuff, but we'll be the ones collecting the check that OpenAI use when they generate content using her. Like, it is the end product of the system that Disney have created, which is Disney is like, you guys are invested in these properties. You're not invested in artists. You're not invested in creators. You're not invested in themes and ideas and stories and perspectives. What you are invested in is universes and more of the same, and content and iconography. And that's what AI, generative AI, is good at, is just giving you more of that. Like, I wish I could say I were surprised by it. I think it's a bad decision. I think it's a stupid decision. I think it's short-sighted. I think it's going to destroy the industry, but I am not surprised by it.
Yeah, I mean, we're also seeing that. So they're releasing apparently 4 separate Avengers Doomsday trailers in IMAX exclusive, 1 week apart from each other. And the first one leaked, like a poor quality of it leaked. And people are just using AI to make the trailer. So there's like fully 4K versions of the trailer, but it's AI made, but it's of what is in the trailer. And even the trailer is just like, hey, remember that nice send-off we gave Steve Rogers back in 2019? Well, he's just fucking back and he's the main character because we have no faith in any of these new characters. And it's just like, well, this is all fucked.
By the way, to be clear, like, we should mention the Rousseau brothers sit on, is it Agbo is their company? And they also sit in AI boards, and they've been talking about like the importance of AI. Like, it is AI as part of the culture of like what Disney is doing with these properties. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. But yeah, that is, by the way, is incredibly bleak. It's like, remember we spent like 5 years setting up all these ideas and characters and hoping that you would invest in all this. Just gonna brush that aside, and nostalgia. That's what we're going for. We're doing a Lego sequel to a movie we released 5 years ago.
Yeah, we like, the cycle gets shorter. It's, the AI thing is very frustrating because, of course, on the other side of things, Microsoft just announced recently that they are massively reconfiguring the scope of the AI, because what they have found is overwhelmingly nobody uses AI. No one uses Copilot, even though they have shoved Copilot and everything. And so they have like put out these statements. So like, we're rethinking our expectations for AI. Meta just fired an entire wing of their AI verse. Like, AI is floundering, but then like, you have Disney investing in it.
Like, we're not an economics podcast. Do not come to the Rewind for economic or financial advice. I am legally obliged to state because I live in the EU. But like, also, like, even what Jack is describing, while culturally, I support it. I think AI is bad and should not exist, and it's good that it's going down the crapper. It's also 18% of the American economy right now, and it exists in a like. It's not even like a pyramid scheme. It's more like a circle scheme where the companies are just like funding each other and funneling money through each other in order to.
It's like if everyone agreed to actively participate in a human centipede. Like, yeah, I'll be in the middle. That's fine. It doesn't matter where. Just
like,
put me in there.
Like, not the program does it creatively, but the people running the program are doing it financially. Yeah. It is insane. And it's like when that crash happens, which will probably happen, it's like I don't even get to feel good about it because it's like it's going to be devastating. Like it is the worst of all possible worlds where like the good outcome is still disastrous for everybody. I love living in this reality.
Yeah.
2025 is great, right?
Yeah. It's a nightmare. It's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. The Hawk CBM, thank you so much for a $5 dono. Missing it live, but was wondering if you're going to do a best/worst of 2025 list/show. Great video, by the way, Darren. In terms of videos, we'll have obviously Yahtzee's regular best, worst, and blandest. We also have a couple group videos that are being worked on, including a video of a bunch of staff members' favorite games of the year, another video on favorite movies and TV shows of the year. I know personally, it's always tough for me to say these were my favorite movies of 2025 until like a month into 2026 because I just don't have an opportunity to see. Like I just can't have. I have had no opportunity to see Marty Supreme yet, and won't until Christmas or whenever it releases. So yeah, I usually like to play a bit of catch up on there.
That's fair.
I also live in a different country with a different release schedule, so I feel the same sort of thing. Where I'm like, I could be 3 months into like 2026. I'm like, I think I discovered my favorite movie of 2025.
You could say Nosferatu is one of your favorites of 2025, and I'm like, you rascal! I saw that last Christmas.
Yeah, I was like, that's cheating. It's not in my spoiler for the video we're making. I did not put Nosferatu in there because that felt cheeky. But it would absolutely be in the conversation. It's in my top 5 for this year because of Irish release dates, baby. We don't go to cinema at Christmas, you weirdos.
Catholic guilt and Irish release dates. We got everything.
The big two. We got the big two.
Kid Barchetta, thank you so much for a $5 dono. Darren, you and Yachts on the anniversary stream was peak, and before you know it, you'll be doing a no-hit Elden Ring run. Also, what are social reactions? Are they a new type of embargo? Yeah, can you talk about social reactions, Darren?
I can actually. So yeah, social reactions are basically to state explicitly what they are meant to be. The idea is that logically, when you see a film, you can share a reaction that is on social media. So like a tweet, a Facebook post. I also generally count a Letterboxd review without a score because those are only a couple of paragraphs or whatever. And the idea is it's just like it's a general sentiment about the movie. It's, I loved it. I hated it. I had mixed feelings about it, or this is a small thing that I loved about it. And the idea is that just generates attention for the movie. It's not a full review. It's not a video. It's not an essay. It's not a published article. So the social embargo lifts before the review embargo does typically. And generally speaking, broadly speaking, there is an understanding that like a social embargo is perceived as being largely public, largely, positive. So the idea is that, you can if you want. And if a movie really, really, really gets under my skin, when the social embargo lifts, I maybe will do an Ebert and go, I fucking hated this so much. But generally speaking, as a professional critic and as like talking to other professional critics, there's like a polite withholding. So if the social embargo lifts and you're like, I don't really like this movie, you let the movie have its first wave of people being like, this is the most incredible movie ever released or whatever, because you don't want to be the person who walks into the party and goes, you're all fucking losers. You don't get it like I do.
And because that social embargo is usually a ways before the general public can go see the movie. It's not like you can't even, there's no point in giving a PSA to not see it because people don't have a chance to see it.
Yeah, and people will have forgotten about that by the time the actual embargo list. And also because like if you're going to be negative about a movie, as a rule, I kind of like to be long negative. I kind of like to be like, here's why I'm being negative. Here are my issues with the movie.
As opposed to something pithy.
Yeah, in a way that doesn't fit with like the social like 120, 140, 280 character thing. So you
can always just pull a Kojima and say, and I watched this movie.
He said that about Wake Up Dead Man. And I was like, oh no, Kojima. All you said was, I saw Wake Up Dead Man. He doesn't have Irish Catholic guilt.
A Japanese games designer.
Don't worry, he's got all sorts of weird baggage. Don't worry, he's got all sorts of different stuff.
You'll notice, by the way, that yes, sometimes when I see a movie like during the social embargo, before the review embargo, you will get a hashtag now watching movie and no follow up whatsoever from me. Generally, on the other hand, if I come out and I'm loving it, it's like, yeah, I actually loved it. That's the thing.
There you go. Pure Pyro with a €2 dono. Thank you so much. What do you guys think about Falling Down from 1993? Speaking of Michael Douglas.
I
haven't seen it in a while, but
I remember liking it as a younger man. I think it would be very interesting to watch from a modern day lens.
Yeah, when these things seem like they happen all the time now.
Yeah. But also, white guy through contemporary Los Angeles on Rampage is like it's an angle that's not aged well. I mean, it's a well-made film. It's Joel Schumacher, isn't it? If I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
I didn't actually realize that.
But again, that's the thing with Schumacher, because Schumacher has this incredible career that spans as long as it does, but all anybody wants to talk about is the 2 freaking Batman movies.
Sure.
Where it's Joel Schumacher directed.
Nipples, Darren, nipples.
I know, and it's like, it feels, and again, to be clear, I like Batman and Robin a bit more than most people do. I don't think it's good. I need to stress that very, very clearly, but I don't hate it as much as most people do.
Darren, I have publicly defended Batman Forever several times.
Well, that's a different kettle of fish, Jack. That's a very I think I've mentioned this before, but Batman Forever was the first moment, like when I was 8 years old and I realized my parents were going to die. It was when I realized movies could be bad. It was when I watched Batman Forever. And I was like, wait, this had Batman in it. I don't like it. What happened? How? It does not work.
Yeah, we call that like the episode 1 syndrome, where it's like, oh no, wait a minute. The things I like can become bad?
Oh.
But like I rewatched Falling Down a couple of years ago. It is a very well-made movie. It has an incredible central performance. It is very pointed and very barbed in a way that I like and respect, but I also understand with good reason it would never be made today, and I think that's probably a good thing. Yeah. But I'm glad that it exists. So I like it. It has its blind spots, to say the least, about it, but it is an interesting movie that is ambitious and would not exist today, for better and, well, probably for better.
Yeah, we'll say that.
Yeah, no need to say or worse. Totally fine. Excellent. We'll get to the rest of the super chats a little bit later. Let's just keep this positivity train rolling straight through Warner Bros. Station. Don't worry. After it, we'll get to stuff we watched
too. Like it's a terminus point, but we just keep going.
When we talk about Christmas movies, I will have nothing but like love and positivity in my heart, and I swear.
Then we'll just veer the wheel straight back to Reflections of a Dead Diamond. Darren, you had an excellent, as we mentioned before, episode of The Backdrop today, trying to make some sense of obviously the big news that Netflix has, or I guess Warner Brothers has accepted the purchase bid from Netflix, although Paramount is trying to enact the equivalent of a hostile takeover. I don't know enough about business to know if it is actually a hostile takeover, but trying to buy a majority shares at a crazy, unreasonable price. Yeah, folks should absolutely check out your episode of The Backdrop. But is there any kind of, not even a TLDR, but like any points of interest, any like thoughts on this that you think could be good for people to have?
Can I talk about the part that piqued my interest the most? Because it was an element of this merger that I didn't necessarily think about, which is in the video you point out that Warner Brothers had 7 movies in the top
17 domestically,
the top 15 domestic blockbuster box office. That's the not blockbuster, box office. And so Warner Brothers leaving the industry of distributing movies in movie theaters also makes it harder for other people to distribute movies in movie theaters, because movie theaters in general will take a giant hit. And to me, that was like as I'm preparing to talk about my favorite movies of this year, it's all like experiences I had in movie theaters. And so it's like, oh, this is way worse than I thought.
I mean, to be clear, Netflix will continue to release movies in theaters while they are contractually obligated to, in much the same way that Disney was contractually obligated to release movies like, say, The Empty Man or West Side Stories in theaters after they bought Fox. They will also probably continue to release movies in theaters like the way that they currently claim that they do, where they're like, we released 30 movies in theaters this year, and it's like, hands up anybody who got to see Train Dreams in a theater. I went to see Frankenstein. I went to see House of Dynamite. I went to see like Knives Out, but I had to travel out of my way, and I live in a major urban center to find a cinema that was screening those movies. 30 movies in theaters a year for a certain value of movies in theaters in a year, but they will probably continue to give big theatrical releases to like franchise films. So like your Supermans, your Batmans, your Harry Potters, your Lord of the Rings, those are probably all safe, right?
Yeah.
What you will see the loss of is movies like, and it's the movies that round out the end of those 7, movies like Weapons, for example, movies like Sinners, for example, movies like One Battle After Another, for example. Those are the movies that like I can't imagine would get made at all at Netflix, given that like Netflix have reportedly lost Zach Cregger's current movie, The Flood. And, you know, obviously one of the big things about Sinners was it wanted to be released theatrically. So those movies don't exist. And the issue is like theaters, which are struggling at the moment, because the big thing with theaters is theaters don't really care about like whether theaters make as much money off a $500 million blockbuster or 100 million movies releasing. Theaters don't care. It's good. And the way that you ensure a healthy and safe environment is that instead of having to bank on hitting, you know, $200 million worldwide 2 weeks out of a month, you can instead go, well, we have a diverse slate of movies, and each of these movies will make $20 million a piece, and we release 3 or 4 of them in a weekend, and there's good variety. Like, I mean, there's talk, I think, this weekend of like 4 or 5 movies making over $20 million in theaters on the weekend, and that is great. That is incredible. And that is a good, healthy ecosystem, and that is how like theaters used to operate. Whereas if theaters become dependent on the tentpoles, if one of those tentpoles fails, theaters are screwed. The example that I think about is, and again, the video was long enough, and I could do a separate video on like theaters, and I could do a separate video on like
release the Mooney cut.
I mean, look, you guys saw the Predator video. I can go long.
Yes.
But the thing with theaters I think about is there was an article published a couple of weeks ago where it's like theaters were making a lot of money off Predator Badlands, right? Predator Badlands was overperforming. And in fact, actually, if you look at the box office for Predator Badlands, you'll see this. Predator Badlands had an incredible first week. And a large part of that was because it was on premium screens, right? But as soon as that week is over, like they have to give up those premium screens to, I believe it was Tron Ares. And Tron Ares, makes no money. And not only does it make no money, it means that theaters can't continue to use those screens to show Badlands, which was making money. And so you have this kind of cycle of like, because the movies are so big and because they need to make so much money, you can't have a steady revenue stream, and you don't have the freedom to choose what gets shown, because it's like, what do you got? You can't tell Disney you're not going to screen like Ares because they won't give you Badlands. And you have a similar situation with Universal, where like one of the conditions of Wicked for Good releasing was that like Universal were like, if we give you Wicked for Good, you need to guarantee us 3 weeks in premium format screens, right? Which is not bad, because Wicked for Good is going to make a lot of money, but by its third week, it's kind of dwindling, and it's like, you know what's releasing the third week that Wicked for Good is out? Five Nights at Freddy's 2, another Universal movies. And cinemas are like, it would be really great if we could put that on premium screens, but you guys made us promise that we would give it to the third week of Wicked 2, which isn't going to make as much for us. Cinemas would much rather have like a diverse, broader pool of like smaller films that didn't need to make as much money, but which encourage like steady movie going and would allow people to continue to get in the habit of going to the cinema like they used to, which is go in the cinema on a Friday night. What's on? We got 5 movies to pick from. That one looks good. Let's go see it. And like, it's very telling that if you look at theaters are diversifying. We've talked about this on the show before, where like here in Dublin, you can rent a theater and play video games in it. But like the Taylor Swift concert is in there. The Beyonce concert's in there. Sporting events are being broadcast to them, for example. You have the Taylor Swift promotional video. Like there's a TV, like even Stranger Things from Netflix are releasing in theaters those episodes.
Our local chain is showing like Masterpiece Theater, like operas on screens, just like that's not our art house. That's our local chain theater. Yeah.
And like, because the idea is you need things in screens to get people to use the screens for the screens to remain open. And the paradox of this is, right, you could say, and look, there are people in the comments of, Darren says as if I'm in the comment, I am in the comments of my YouTube videos. There are people in the comments of the YouTube video being like, I I don't care about theaters. Theaters are bad. I don't like the experience of theaters, and that's fine. That is absolutely fine. Some theaters are not great. I will absolutely put my hands up. Some theatrical experiences are not fantastic. Some theaters don't pay enough ushers. Some theaters don't maintain their surroundings, their equipment, their projectors, whatever. I accept that. I think that is perfectly reasonable and fair.
Absolutely.
Any criticism of the streaming model is not a criticism of the idea of streaming. It's the idea of the importance of like streaming being lower down the process and the rung, right? Because the reason why theaters are important, outside the fact that like they employ people and it's good that people are employed and people should be able to like eat and that's good, is that like they are also essential for studios to make profits on movies, right? Because Netflix are the only studio that have managed to make streaming profitable for themselves, and they've done that largely by loading themselves with massive amounts of debt and being valued by like a tech company. They're not valued as a media company is because they're not transparent, because if they were transparent it would be a whole different story. They're valued on potential, on growth, on market, etc. Like they're not valued in the same way that like Warner's does, where Warner's like stock will take a tumble after a bad opening weekend. If like Project Power is released on Netflix and nobody watches it, that doesn't affect Netflix's stock price at all, right? And the issue, and you can see that like other studios cannot get streaming to work as a premium format, and you can see it in a number of ways. Like you had Disney try and do the €20 premium video on demand for Black Widow, and they're like, never doing that again. You had like Universal at the start of the pandemic be like, everything immediately goes on streaming at $20 a pop. We're going to make so much money. And it's like, look at how much money we made from Trolls 2. And they're like, so does that mean you'll be sending Trolls 3 direct to that model? No way. That's going straight to theaters, because that is where you make the money. In order for Warner Brothers to justify making like Matt Reeves the Batman has to go to theaters and make the money that it makes in theaters in order to allow it to go to streaming later on. That is the thing about like criticizing streaming. I'm not saying Netflix shouldn't exist. I'm not saying that HBO shouldn't exist. I think those are great services. I think libraries are fantastic. I think that everything should eventually end up in a library. But the idea is, in order to justify continuing to make movies, which are very expensive products, you have to earn money on them. And the way that you earn money on them is by having some small medium of exclusivity involved, right? Where the first stage is theaters. And yes, theaters are exclusive and not everybody has access to them. And as we pointed out, not every theater is perfect or well maintained, right? So it's self-selecting. Only the most hardcore fans will go to the theater on opening weekend. Losers like this dude right here. And we will pay premium. I have like a membership of my local cinema. Even though I'm a film critic, I have a membership. I go 2 or 3 times a week paying. I buy popcorn and drink. And I do because I love the experience. Like, I'm not going to pretend I'm some sort of martyr sitting there being like, I'm single-handedly keeping cinema alive like Seth Rogen in the studio. I'm doing it because I enjoy the experience of it. But the idea is, I understand that I am doing that so that it can then go to streaming video on demand, where it is a little bit cheaper and it's a little more widely accessible. And that's great. So if you wait 3 weeks, you can pay $20 and download, and that's great. So if you're not so excited to go to the theater, you might be excited enough to pay for it at home. That's okay. You don't want to do that? That's fine. If you wait another 6 months, it'll probably pop up on TV, on a cable subscriber. So you pay for HBO, you might get to watch it or whatever. That's fine. Don't want to do that? That's okay. Nobody's going to force you. No gun to your head. You're not going to force you to buy cable. You can wait another 6 months and it'll turn up in the HBO library or on Netflix. Because by that point, it has, through a long enough tail, earned enough money that like the studio can go, you know what, we can spend another $100 million to make another thing like this. As opposed to the streaming situation, which is we pull the lever, it goes straight in streaming. It's like, how much money did that make? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, you know, which is insane. Sorry.
Oh, no,
that was my long rant. I apologize for that.
That's you're articulating a lot of the things that are on my mind as well. And there's no like, I don't know. This is such a huge, messy, shitty topic that there is no like easy distillation of here's the 5 bullet points you need. Like everything's bad, and I've seen some people arguing like, well, is it better if it's Netflix, or if this is going to be inevitable? Is it better if it's Netflix or better if it's Paramount? I'm like, you're just being like, would you rather get thrown out of a plane or stabbed to death? Neither.
which is the best form of hepatitis, and you can't say A.
Yeah. Like at least Jared Kushner isn't involved in one of them, I guess. Right. Is that like a small victory?
It is insane listening to movie podcasts. And again, we mentioned before, we love the big picture, very fond of like the host there, but where like Sean Fennessy is going, you know, like I am cognizant of the fact that like Ellisons are propping up a dictatorship and CNN might become a propaganda wing of the Trump administration. But on the other hand, administrations will probably end at some point in the near future, and cinema as an art form is forever. So how do you weigh these two things? And it's like, that is like, he's right. You can't weigh those two things. That's an insane thing to say. And it's like, both of these things are bad. And like, if they were being bought by Paramount, I would be having a similar existential crisis. The nature of this crisis is specific to Netflix, because Netflix are at the moment the studio that has bought them for the moment.
For the moment. Not only bought them, but also emailed all of its subscribers saying, we absolutely bought them. We're getting all their stuff. Look forward to all this stuff that we're getting. We promise you're getting it.
We're not going to hike up prices.
Now that we have Superman, Batman, the Looney Tunes, Harry Potter, we're definitely not going to charge you more.
$83 billion more in debt, by the way. It's all something like that.
It's always funny to me also when they're like, oh, Netflix is going to pay for it using debt. I'm like, can you just do that? Can I go to the grocery store and be like, I'll pay for this in debt?
Yeah.
I guess that's what a credit card is.
Got like the Saudi sovereign wealth fund to pay for my groceries. Point over Jared Kushner at the corner of the store saying, he says I can get oat milk this week.
It's I don't know, it's a nightmare. It's also a nightmare that I don't think is going to be resolved for a very long time. I think this will be, I mean, if we look back to on the game side of things, when Microsoft said they were going to purchase Activision, it took years for that to go through. And spoilers, the result is that thousands of people lost their jobs. Thousands of people lost their jobs, and most things have gotten a little bit worse. So
But this is, I mean, the video alludes to it, but like buying Warner Brothers is a curse, where it's like other studios have been bought and it's gone relatively smoothly. So Disney buying Fox went relatively smoothly. Skydance buying Paramount has gone relatively smoothly. But every time somebody tries to buy Warner Brothers, it's like, welcome to the Vietnam War. It's like, I hope you enjoy quagmires and like dissatisfaction. And like, you are somehow going to leave this deal worse than you found it. And Warner Brothers is going to limp on towards the horizon. But the thing is that like Netflix, I think they have, is it a $5 billion walk away clause? So if in, again, I think the language is like weird, where it's like 6.5 years plus 6 months. So in 3 years, if no forward momentum has been taken on this due to whatever stalling or regulation or outside interference, Netflix will walk away and they'll pay $5 billion. But the thing is, like, for Netflix, A, that's pocket change because it's not real money, as we discussed. And B, like, they have just, like, Hollywood is right back where it is now in this moment that we're talking right now. We're having this existential crisis. And for 2 years, Hollywood has been tied up in the fear and the paralysis of Netflix. And everything has gone. So even if Netflix lose, and even if Netflix don't get Warners, this is still a good net win for them, which is really depressing. I love late capitalism. Late capitalism is great, isn't it?
You know what I miss? Early capitalism. I'll give you some berries for that donkey. That was early capitalism. It was great.
Bring back Andrew Carnegie. That's
barterism. You know, it's like, you know, like, I'm looking for a donkey. You're looking for some berries. I don't have any berries, but I'll give you this token so you can, you know, get berries. Huh?
Love a token.
I love the idea that it has Jack's face on it as well. Like, it's like good
Jack
brand.
Bucks.
Jack
Bucks.
And then next week we jack up the price.
I like it. It's terrible. You should buy Warner Brothers.
100%.
Take that debt. Buy it with that.
100%. Let me look around my office to see what spare change I can wrangle up.
65 billion, 66 billion. I'm just some shortcuts.
I mean, this is something that you know, I'm sure there'll be updates probably by the time our next episode rolls around in the new year.
Right.
That we'll probably chat about. So this is one of those
Jack
stories.
Warner, by the way. They're missing an opportunity here. You would be Jack.
Putting that out there.
Yeah.
Putting that out there.
And we know they listen to the podcast, according to what Darren said earlier. Zaslav's like, maybe they won't roast me this week. Got it again.
You know when you've been Zaslaved, yeah.
Very depressing. Let's talk about less depressing stuff. Let's talk about stuff we've been watching. Let's start, since we are T-minus 9 days away from Christmas. Obviously, folks have their annual traditions for movies they watch every year, maybe new movies they stumble upon. Although I still want to say that like we're at a point in history where we're not getting modern Christmas classics anymore. It feels like in tough. Like the 90s and even in the aughts, we were getting like one every few years, and now I guess we got the holdovers, which was nice.
I will say this morning I was on my way to the press screening of Marty Supreme, which we'll talk about in a moment, and I did wander into the wrong cinema at the cinema where they were screening it, and they were screening The Grinch. And not The Grinch from 2001, The Grinch from 2018.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, maybe we are just out of touch, Marty. Maybe
I guess that's
Benedict
true.
Cumberbatch's CGI Grinch movie is a new holiday. The kids seem to love it.
This is true.
You know, I would say I know, like for our annual Thanksgiving movie marathons, we watch The Christmas Chronicles, which isn't necessarily new, but that's a pretty darn new Christmas movie that has
7 years. Yes, that's pretty new. It's like
that's become a regular part of our rotation.
That's a long time ago, though.
Sure, A Violent Night is just a couple years old.
3 Warner Brothers owners ago.
That's true. Violent Night. And Darren mentioned the new Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is apparently decent.
The best of the 7, and I know because I watched all 7.
I was gonna say you guys need to stop doing this to yourself, but I do the same thing to myself. So, like, who am I to say?
Yeah, I mean, I do like that. It's like that's where my critical integrity is. It's like, Darren, did you rewatch all the sad free movies to get you in the right zone for Marty Supreme? It's like, no, I watched all 7 Silent Night, Deadly Night, so I could get in the proper like continuity headspace. Of course, I will say, the new one is the best of the 7.
Wow, that's high praise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no garbage.
Mickey Rooney was in one.
Mickey Rooney was in the best of the original 6.
Honestly.
Rooney was in one of the Silent Night, Deadly Nights?
Yeah. No, because he protested the first one. Like, this is the thing. The first one was like massively controversial, released in 1984. It made more money its opening weekend than Nightmare on Elm Street, which is kind of incredible for a movie that is forgotten. But it caused this like huge outrage of like, oh my God, they're taking something sacred and making it profane. It's like, oh, Santa Claus is gonna massacre people. And like Mickey Rooney was one of the guys who was at the forefront of criticizing. He was one of these like, again, old school Hollywood voices of being like, they're disrespecting. It's modern Hollywood. They got no respect for anything. And then in the 5th Silent Night movie, he plays a toy maker called Joseph Petto, which I do appreciate as a bit of wordplay, who makes, and wait, shocking twist, a doll that comes alive, a weirdly Oedipal genital-less doll, and tries to imbue it with the spirit of a human being. It is, Jack, you've seen 5, right?
Oh, I've seen 5. One of the ending scene in which this genitalless doll attempts to rape a woman might be one of the most harrowing things I've ever seen. It was creepy and delightful.
And again, I will say, for a movie that was made for $20 in a packet of crisps, the makeup on the doll is pretty good. The thing about like 5, which is so fascinating, is that like it's I love that we're like, let's sing the praises of Silent Night, Violent Night 5, the toy maker. But the thing about it that is so good, in inverted commas, is that like the previous movies don't really have that big of a Christmas angle attached to them. Like the first one has like some vague Reagan era commentary on commercialism and consumerism and the consumerism of Christmas, and like the weird paradox of like the weird puritanical, almost like sexual kink of naughty and nice and violence and slasher movies, which is kind of interesting. But the rest of them may as well not be set at Christmas. Like the second one is set in like California, in like shot in the middle of summer in California, where like he doesn't even really dress up as Santa until the final scene of it. And like obviously, but the 5th one, and the 3rd one is like a ripoff of Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which is inexplicable. The 4th one is like Rosemary's Baby. It's like very weird because none of these are really Christmas themed horror movies. But the 5th one comes up with the idea of like, let's do something about toys because it's Christmas and it needs to be related to toys. And it's so fascinating because they honed in on something that is really interesting, which is the idea of you're making a Christmas horror movie about killer toys. It should kind of be a movie for kids because the main character of the movie is a kid. And there are several other kids, including stock kid characters, like the bully kid character, and the Joe Petto plot is the story of a parent and a child. You're like, this is actually not the worst horror movie that has been made for an 8-year-old. And then you realize that somebody at the studio was like, yeah, but this is going direct to VHS in the 90s. We got to stick in some completely gratuitous softcore porn too, which is just so surreal that there's like a 10-minute boob-heavy sex scene that's like, yeah, you had a pretty good horror movie to show an 8-year-old, and now it's just like Skinamax in the 90s level stuff. It's such a weird movie.
It's a very weird movie.
Yeah.
It's a delightfully weird movie. But so I think as far as like modern Christmas classics, they will still sift through. It's just going to take us more time to find them. Like it took us time. Part of the very frustrating thing about like modern streaming, as Darren alluded to before, is we don't necessarily get those classics. The only reason things like A Wonderful Life, the only reasons things like A Christmas Story are classics was because they were legendary flops and therefore really cheap to run on cable.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't.
And cable was a monoculture, and like you just stuck on the TV and you kind of consumed what was on the TV. Somebody who was programming the TV chose for you, and you don't have that on.
And
Netflix.
we can't get that anymore. Even if there is a diamond in the Netflix library somewhere, we don't necessarily know about it, which is very, very frustrating. Because I mean, as someone who genuinely likes A Christmas Story, I think it's a very fun and good movie, and genuinely does not like It's a Wonderful Life.
You don't like It's a Wonderful Life? Oh, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Here. There are a couple of you're outnumbered here, Marty. I'm afraid.
I don't like this at all. We'll get the reflections of a dead diamond and everything will be fine.
Oh yeah. But speaking of Christmas movies, I don't know where Silent Night, Deadly Night came from, but now that we got done with that conversation, and I don't even remember how it started. So speaking of It's a Wonderful Life, I do have a general blind spot for older movies because I have a general dislike of older movies. They were still figuring out the format. They were still figuring out like what a movie is, especially when it comes
that
to
hack Orson Welles.
That goddamn hack Orson Welles. And so, my local art house theater, the Oriental Theater, is showing classic Christmas movies, and someone saw that A White Christmas was playing. I had never seen. They dragged me to the theater, and I saw A White Christmas for the very first time. And let me tell you, that's a humdinger of a movie. That's a humdinger of a Christmas movie.
So you found your Christmas spirit. All you had to do was find your Christmas spirit. I also like White Christmas, and I do like coming to these movies late and being like, oh wait, there's these like. It turns out some of these movies that people were like throwing praises at. Oh, I might actually like some of these.
Oh yeah, like these movies that are all-time Christmas classics. Yeah, they might be pretty good.
But like you said, you can't trust that because some of the ones people say are all-time Christmas classics, you watch, and then you're like, well, this isn't what I want to watch. I think we talked. Didn't both of us? Both of us watched The Apartment for the first time.
Yes,
relatively recently, which is fucking great. Like again, no surprise there, and everyone's been singing its praises. But yeah, I tend to like Christmas movies that like like depressing Christmas movies have kind of entered my rotation.
Yeah,
and that goes for stuff even like Batman Returns or Eyes Wide Shut, like stuff you kind of squint to be Christmas movies. But
they take place at Christmas, Marty. Like it's not
it's like. A Christmas movie make that does not a Christmas movie make.
We're not going to do the Die Hard.
No, we're not getting into it. To me,
Die Hard 3 is a Christmas movie though.
It even opens with Hot Town Summer in the City to throw you off the set.
Right. The most amazing thing to me about White Christmas, something that I didn't realize because I had never seen it, is the opening scene takes place during World War II, during an active bombing in World War II. That's when Bing Crosby first sings White Christmas, and it cuts to all of the soldiers openly weeping, thinking about them missing a White Christmas back home. So, like, watching the movie also recontextualizes this Christmas song that has been part of my life forever. I was like, oh shit, that's a sad song.
Yeah. Christmas
like
music is sad music.
New York came from like the Martin Scorsese movie about like abortions. Like it's that Martin Scorsese like it's a musical about domestic violence and abortion. It's like, yeah, but it's got a really catchy theme that Frank Sinatra's going to knock out of the park.
It's got to be great. You're going to love it. Yeah.
Yeah, but White Christmas, wonderful. Here's what I will say about White Christmas. It is also a really great example of my problem with older movies. Now, I don't know all of the actors' names because I didn't care to open up a tab. But there are two parts of the movie. One is just a regular old movie. The actors are talking to each other, and then they have what are essentially filmed stage performances. The famous Sisters song, Sisters, Sisters, never had a lot without a sisters, right? A beautiful song. Right? Yeah, I do it justice, obviously.
I thought that was great.
Thank you.
It's like they're in the room.
As you can see, if you're watching this, Eric has it on the frame here. The sisters are looking right down the barrel of the camera. We, as the film viewers, are also the audience to the performance. They are looking right down the lens, which is fine. But then in the very next scene, the rightmost sister is doing a little dance number with Danny Kaye. And it's the first time that we have a musical number outside of a stage performance. It's the first time White Christmas turns into a musical movie, not just a series of performances on a stage. And Danny Kaye is performing this wonderful dance and song, looking right at that lady whose name I do not know. And he is looking right at her, but she's still
Rosemary
in performance.
George's aunt?
Fuck, man.
Another good Nepo baby.
Yeah. Nepo nephew?
Nepo nephew. He was still a baby at some point.
Yeah, that's fine. So Danny Kaye is looking at her, but she keeps looking down the barrel of the camera. And it's very distracting because it's like, no, this scene is about you two together. This is not a stage performance. This is about you two coming together as a couple. And she keeps jazz handing to the camera, and it's very distracting.
What was the audience like at this movie?
Surprisingly young is what I will say. A lot of parents bringing kids to it. It was screened at a theater, so a lot of parents bringing kids. But I noticed several people out on a date afternoon. This was like 1 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon, and so it was a younger than me audience mostly.
Interesting.
Which is great.
Maybe the kids are going to be all right.
I think so. I saw some snugglings. I saw some smoochings. People were having a great time.
And then they'd whisper, like, why is that lady still looking at us?
Why is she watching it? It makes me
She's
uncomfortable.
got to break eye contact. This is creepy.
Here's the thing. The cinematography is real weak. It's not helping tell the story at all.
Love, by the way, that somehow you're sitting in a room full of like PTA bros. Like, it's Tarantino bros just amble into the theater for White Christmas. Yeah.
White Christmas on VistaVision.
But phenomenal Christmas movie will probably enter my regular rotation. Yeah.
See that? Christmas Adventures. God damn it. I like when a new movie comes. I feel like The Holdover. I haven't rewatched The Holdover since whenever it came out 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know when that was. 2 years ago. Yeah, whatever year it was. But I feel like that's going to be one that slowly enters. I also liked Klaus. Did you guys ever see the animated movie Klaus?
The 3D animated Klaus? Yeah. That's a good one.
Jason Schwartzman?
Jason Schwartzman. Yeah.
Swole Santa during that Swole Santa phase.
Oh, yeah. I didn't like the Swole Santa movie was bad, I thought. That's Red one.
I mean, there were several Swole Santa movies. Like, you got Violent Night. Yeah. You got like Christmas Chronicles, kind of no matter how much weight you put on Kurt Russell, he's still pretty swole.
Sure.
There's a difference between Swole Santa and Daddy Santa.
Sure. Tim Allen's the Santa Claus. That's Daddy Santa.
I think you mean Daddy Christmas. But
Kurt Russell is Daddy Christmas.
That's funny as hell. No. There was no Christmas movies in theaters this year, is there?
Well, there was also no real Halloween movie in theaters this year as well. Like, it was Black Phone was the only horror movie released in October by a major studio.
That was like more of the Christmas one. That was all snowy.
Yeah, and that was all snowy and white.
That one over here.
Yeah. It's kind of ease that in. Whereas Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is like in the December corridor for Christmas.
I mean, I guess they realize probably the wheelhouse for these new holiday movies are just streaming services. Are like we talked about last time, like put your holiday heist movie on Netflix, like the Hallmark kind of thing.
That's it. But it's also like the up-brand Hallmark. It's not like we're getting versions of like the holdovers or versions like White Christmas or whatever. And to be fair, maybe they tried. I mean, maybe like the Sofia Coppola kind of like Christmas special with was it Bill Murray?
Bill Murray, yeah.
There was a while where maybe the studios were trying to do the artisanal Christmas thing. You mentioned the like Klaus, which I'm less fond of than you guys are, but is also very much a bespoke Christmas thing, like the Very Murray Christmas. And it does feel like at a certain point with the streaming services, everything kind of flattens out to Apple being like, how do you feel about like Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell in like a Christmas musical?
Oh God, I forgot that one.
Yeah,
And I'm like, because I'm kind of obsessed with A Christmas Carol, the story, and so like any adaptation of A Christmas Carol, I will watch. But yeah, that movie was really bad.
Have you seen Christmas Karma?
I have seen Christmas Karma. Yes,
you have seen. Oh, fantastic! What a movie! And what a movie! Paid for by the Ugandan Tourism Committee.
One of a project I've always wanted to do.
We're not committing genocide anymore.
It's fine. Yeah, it's we're Christmas washing this.
Wow.
One I've always wanted to Swede together an entire telling of A Christmas Carol, but every scene just jumps to a new adaptation because they all pretty much just do the exact same fucking thing. So just go from like George C. Scott to the Muppets to the nightmarish Jim Carrey is everyone version. Yeah.
Again, you're talking about like Steven Soderbergh it, like Psychos. So
yeah, exactly.
Christmas carols, I guess, is what you call it. But yeah,
Christmas carols. I like it. I like
it. Sold right there.
There you go.
I look forward to the copyright lawsuit, Marty.
It's fine. I'll put it on the internet. You can't get sued if something's on the internet.
It's all fair use.
Flawless. Flawless.
I think it's fair.
It's a commentary. It's a commentary.
Disney said AI could do whatever it wants.
What if I just type into Sora, make me a Christmas Carol?
Love it.
Everything's terrible. What other stuff have we been watching? Jack, what are you been watching?
I did rewatch Hundreds of Beavers because that is a Christmas movie. It has an actual Santa Claus in it.
Sure.
And it's in the snow.
It's in the snow.
It's very white and kind of black. It has a Christmassy palette. And it is
if we were going by my own made up rules, it is not a Christmas movie. But I watched it during Christmas time, so it's a Christmas movie. And I watched my personal favorite Christmas movie of all time, which is 1994's Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Which is a fucking phenomenal movie. John Hughes, forever the king of Christmas. Just a beautiful, beautiful movie.
My mom loves that movie so much. It's her. It's that and Elf. I think it's my mom's.
Right? It's just so sugary. It's so saccharine. It is like it's melodramatic. It's soft lighting and blurred focus to make everyone look beautiful, and they all love each other in Christmas, but I can't love you because I'm a working woman. Oh fuck.
Who's got time for love and jobs? You can't have time for both.
Danny Boyle, Steve Jobs, right there. That's very much
literally what it's about.
Yeah.
What a heater, Richard Attenborough. What a heater. That and JP.
He doesn't endanger any kids in that movie either, so that's it's got that going for it.
That's true. Good for him. Good for him.
Delightful casting. Dylan McDermott. I'm trying to even think of a movie with the strangest bit parts in the world. There's like the lady's coworker who has the mustache and is the only one in the movie besides one other extra who talks like they're in olden times. It's so great.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Good stuff.
Alison Janney, Jennifer Morrison, Josh Ackland is in there. Robert Prosky. God, I love a bit of Prosky.
That was a few years. Get your prostate exam.
Yeah, I mean, every man over the age of 40 needs to get their
prosky exam.
Yeah.
And what's her name from Matilda was that was
she had a heater. Incredible run. Yeah, that's
Mara Wilson.
Mara Wilson. Yeah. No, it is hands down my favorite Christmas movie. A Christmas movie I don't get to watch very often because my kids hate it. So,
what kind of stuff, Chris? Do your kids have favorite Christmas movies? Are they do kids like Elf?
They don't like Elf. This year was an interesting year because they made the conscious decision this year not to watch their favorite Christmas movie, which is Home Alone 1 and 2.
Sure.
And they said, hey, We've watched Home Alone 1 and 2 every single year. We're going to give it a break this year so we can come back next year and enjoy
Home Alone
it.
3.
Yeah, they should go to Home Alone 3.
All other Home Alones do not exist in our household.
Yeah, that's probably the safe bet for everything, unless you want French Stewart as your as your robber. Really taking a dive from Joe Pesci to French Stewart. Let me say,
right. So yeah, like they love that. We love Jingle All the Way. They will tolerate a Muppet Christmas Carol. Tolerate. They don't love it like I love it.
How are they in general?
They don't care. They have no. They're neutral towards Muppets in general. They also love
like Jeff Keighley.
Yeah,
Jeff Keighley is the opposite of that. That man loves his Muppets. They like Violent Night. You said
we are planning on watching Violent Night on Christmas Eve, and so that's because that one is so fucking good.
You could show him what was it? Dial Tone Santa Claus, the French. The French one we watched a few years ago.
That's a great one.
A year ago, 2 years ago? I don't know what
Dial Code?
Dial Code Santa Claus, I think. It might or Dial Code Noel. It's a French movie that is weirdly was made right before Home Alone and is kind of the same story as Home Alone, except instead of the wet bandits, it's like a murderer who escaped from an insane asylum who literally wants to murder this boy at his home, and he's dressed as Santa, and so the boy thinks he has to defend his home from Santa. Great movie.
Jenna,
I love that the French are just like, what if we take this American concept and make it like 20% more? Sorry, apologies to all French listeners.
You did a French accent right before we started, and you're like, "Ooh, I'm glad we're not live yet." And you're like, let me just bust it out the 90-minute mark.
Just crack it on there. We're all friends here, Darren.
Sometimes contributor here to Second Wind, Jenna Stieber, has a great video about it because the rumor is that John Hughes stole the idea from this movie because it came out a good while before Home Alone, and you can even pin it played at Cannes, and John Hughes was vacationing in France while it was playing.
Damn.
Now, no one actually believes this is true because John Hughes has said many times, and it's very you can see it. The Home Alone is based on that one scene in Uncle Buck in which Macaulay Culkin kind of defends the home against Buck's girlfriend. And he's like, this is a really fun idea. Let's make a whole movie out of that, which makes significantly more sense than I snuck away from a family vacation to go to Cannes where I saw a weird French horror movie and now I want to bastardize it.
I do also love like the foresight of being like, and I made sure that like there was a dummy in the bed so my wife wouldn't realize as well.
Yeah.
we could make a Tetris type movie that is just a dramatization of this. Is John Hughes's heist of Home Alone,
trying to fly out of Charles de Gaulle Airport, just like with a scratch pad of notes of like how to make Home Alone, how to rip off this French movie without seeming like I totally ripped it off.
And the gendarme is just like, what? I'm not going to do the accent. I almost did the accent. I'm not going to do the accent. Like,
it's fun. We're in a post-Claire Obscure winning best game of the year. You can do the accent all you want.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's what is this? And it's like, oh, just some ideas this kid wrote down.
That's great.
Yeah.
And the note gets a little bit soggy, and he's like, I hope they don't band it in front. Bandit.
Bandit.
Macaulay, it's me, John. I found that sound.
Yeah. We're looking forward to watching Violent Night, and they have requested Noel.
Oh, I actually like that one with that was the one with Bill Hader and what's her name?
What's her name
from Pitch Perfect? Anna Kendrick.
Yeah. Oh, Anna Kendrick. Yeah.
And you know what? It's been a few years since we've seen it. We loved it. It's very funny. It's a good Christmas movie, and so like that's our Christmas Eve watch list.
Nice.
And so, I think. But Noel, I think could be up there. I think, but it's trapped on a streaming service. Is that Netflix as well, or is that Disney Plus?
I think that was a want to say it's a Disney Plus movie.
Yeah.
'Cause
So
I think that went straight to. I feel like that went straight to
Yeah.
Disney Plus. I don't know, around maybe the COVID year or the year before COVID.
yeah. So these Christmas
2.5
classics
Warner
are
Brothers owners
trapped.
ago.
Yeah, pre-Zaz, mid-Zaz.
It's like how we value movies based on the amount of Red Hulks. We now have to value time based off of HBO owners,
Warner
Warner
Brothers.
Brothers
Red
owners.
Hulk.
Yeah.
I can't believe Red Hulk was this year. That seems like it was decades ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
we were we were having a conversation this morning, myself and the other critics, and it was just like going through the best of and worst of lists, and they're like, Snow White, that was this year,
That
right?
couldn't have
It's
been this
like,
year.
That couldn't have been this. Like, yeah, that
Refuse to
has to
believe
have been like 3 years ago, 4 years
Yeah.
ago, maybe. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like no, it's been that kind of year.
It's funny, the good ones still feel like this year, even though like Sinners was relatively early. But that still feels like this year because I think about it a lot.
The
Yeah.
Brutalist, Nosferatu, if you live in like anywhere.
Stop
The
it! You
Brutalist
cannot
was
do
this
that.
year?
No, it wasn't. For Darren, it was, but it was not.
Not for
Technically.
real people. Yeah, no.
Literally, both of those I saw in 2026. I saw in like the first week of January or 2025. God, what? I don't even know. I'm already in the future. I'm already done with this year.
I like that as if like hopping into 2026 is going to be better, Marty. I love the optimism.
Everything
You're
will
not-
be fine.
You're not just going to materialize in a giant smoking crater looking around at radioactive ants or whatever.
Everything will be fine. Easy peasy.
While
okay,
the
before we-
Terminator just stumbles towards you telling you to drink bleach if it makes you feel validated in yourself.
But it'll look like all of those, like when they show those like autonomous robots now, and then it just starts like wigging out, and then it falls
Yeah.
down and just like running in circles. It looks like a Three Stooge. I'm like, I think it's not gonna kill me.
I mean, it'll probably kill you accidentally, but it's okay because you signed a waiver.
It's fine. The waiver will
Yeah,
fix everything.
When you bought your iPhone, you promised not to sue them in the off chance you got shot by a stray bullet from a Terminator.
I knew I should have read the fine print. Yeah.
Perfectly normal.
But that was Disney, wasn't that? Was the thing where it's like, because you're a Disney Plus subscriber, you can't sue us if you're injured in the parks.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Those feel different. Those feel like completely different things.
Yep.
At
you know
the
what that
very
was
least,
them?
just be like, if you bought a ticket to the park, there's the fine print there. Don't say it's because of Disney Plus. That's
That
insane.
was them trying. They were trying. Like, will this work? Okay, it doesn't.
Listen,
yeah, that's fine. We'll
no
never
bad
try
ideas
that
in a
again.
brainstorm.
Yeah, no bad ideas in this
Yeah.
room. The lawyers say, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what if it's a ticket station? No, too straightforward. Too straightforward. That's only one billable hour. I think we can get to 5.
If you can identify Mickey Mouse in a lineup of cartoon rats, you can't sue us.
Wow.
It's that easy. All right, let's go over some more super chats and then jump into the rest of the non-holiday stuff we've been talking about, or we've been watching. Sovereign with a €5 dono, thank you so much. Any opinions on the upcoming Andy Serkis Animal Farm film? You need to hear sane people talk about this, and of course, R.I.P. Rob Reiner. I don't know about the Animal Farm movie by Andy Serkis. Oh, is this the one that the what's they're called that shitty company is releasing?
Is this the one where Seth Rogen is playing one of the pigs and something like that, isn't it?
Okay.
This-
So I know because it's being
yes,
it's
Seth Rogen is playing Napoleon, the pig. Yes.
Right.
it's
It's
being
got
released by
Kieran
Angel
Culkin,
Studios.
Oscar winner Kieran Culkin, Iman Vellani from Miss Marvel's in there, Steve Buscemi, Woody Harrelson, Jim Parsons. I don't know why I'm more disappointed with Jim Parsons. But yeah, Glenn Close is in there. Of course, she is going to get her that
Isn't
Oscar.
that Sheldon?
Yes.
Yeah.
that
Why
was
are you
the joke.
disappointed in Sheldon?
That was the
Because
joke.
he doesn't need it. He can just walk away.
None of
They're
these people
making
need
the
it.
Second spin-off from the Big Bang Theory. He's minted for life. They're
Written by Nicholas Stoller, who I actually like. That's who he's the guy who wrote
did the Muppets, right?
Speaking of the Muppets and Forgetting
Forgetting
Sarah
Sarah
Marshall.
Wait.
Yeah.
Are they turning Animal Farm into a comedy?
Yeah, and like this is the thing, right? So, has anybody here watched? Has anybody here watched Andy Serkis's Jungle Book, a Netflix original movie?
I
Speaking
did,
of movies
yeah.
that Netflix released and just go into the void, where
Yeah.
even if you've watched them, you haven't actually watched them. But yeah, the thing about I remember about his Jungle Book is that came out and it contrasted with the Jon Favreau Disney Jungle Book. And the thing about Serkis's Jungle Book is that it's weirdly dark.
Okay.
It is very clearly Netflix were we're going to hire the Gollum guy to make our ripoff Disney CGI movie. And it's I remember it being kind of weirdly murderous and sexual. and being like, this is a very strange angle. And so, like, when I hear his Animal Farm and I see it juxtaposed, as you say, with the images that look like they're from a 2000s-esque Disney, not Pixar, Disney computer-generated animated movie, I'm like, this is going to be interesting at the very least. It is maybe telling that, like, he jumped from this straight to doing The Hunt for Gollum, where, like, there is a bit of a, I could maybe take a paycheck job after this and shore myself up. What, you mean, 2 Hunt for Gollum movies? Really?
Oh man!
Listen, he already made his art house picture with Venom: Let There Be Carnage. So
the best Venom movie.
He did
like,
his
the
one for
Venom
him.
movie that's like actually good. I'm out of the Eddie closet. One of the great.
I'm out of the Eddie closet. Yeah, no. The thing I know about this Animal Farm movie is that it's being it was funded by Angel Studios, and the only thing I know about them is they did that Sound of Freedom movie, and so there's like a little bit of a stank on this of like, oh, this movie is being released by like the kind of weird conservative studio that releases their like scare tactics movies about children abductions, and
Sure. Yeah. Animal Farm, you know, like if anyone doesn't know what Animal Farm is, heads up. Relatively famous anti-fascism book, kind of, you know, using the lens of farm animals, kind of walks you through the steps of authoritarianism and how it could feasibly happen. You know, usually, like at least when I was in high school, required high school reading. I generally think not necessarily a good read, but a good book to read in general. It's nice that it's there. They have made several movie versions of this, including live action versions, 2D animated versions. And so if a notoriously conservative production company is putting together an anti-fascism movie, I think they might get some of their wires crossed.
Well,
it would be my concern.
The thing about that is that it is explicitly communism. It's specifically kind of
fair
fascism. And to be fair, Darren not sticking up for Stalinism, which is very explicitly what like Orwell was criticizing. Not saying Stalinism good, but I'm like, you could see the in that Angel Studios have there on like at this particular moment where we think the real threat of fascism comes from the left.
Fair.
We should also point out that, like, to give credit where it's due, setting aside the whole, as you say, snank of The Sound of Freedom, which I'm glad that Bill Camp got paid money to be in.
Love Bill Camp. Get that paycheck.
Yeah, like, again, like, really interesting career, that man. The one character actor, it's like you get to have one character actor, and it's all on him. But they released Sketch this year, which got great reviews. I have not seen it because it did not screen for critics in Ireland because they don't have distribution over here. But apparently Sketch is very good. That's the Darcy Condon, Tony Hale movie that garnered, like, it got rave reviews. People
that's right. Okay, I know that one. Yeah,
I'm hearing people say that it's one of the best family movies of recent years. I have not seen it. I can't comment. It didn't really get a release over here. But maybe it's a separate thing. I don't know.
Apparently, according to Deadline Hollywood, Animal Farm finished production in May of 2024. Great. Oh, so it's usually, you know what, the sign of movies that are good is usually when they finish them. We're like, we can just wait a couple of years.
Like,
although sometimes,
sit on a shelf like like fine wine. It's gonna age. Like we sit back in the studio. We go, that's pretty good. But you know what the missing ingredient is? Time.
This has notes of 2024 in it.
You just gotta hold on. Yeah.
Love it. So there you go. Apparently it's coming out in May.
Great. Let's just let it stew for a little bit longer. That's great.
Mindule, thank you so much for $2 dono. Fear and regret in your voice. We have to go back. The problem is if we go back to something, it was bad. It was always bad. It's like it's a new level of bad now, but it was always kind of bad.
It was always kind of bad.
Yeah, it's always a little bad.
The path was always kind of there, and you could it was always there. The difference was like the innocence. If you want to go back, it's like I would not like to be sent back to 2015 because if I arrive in 2015. I know what's coming, and I have to live through the next 10 years knowing for sure what's coming, like some sort of weird Cassandra-esque figure. But part of me is like, if you could send me back to like a random day in 2025, like The Matrix, if I was Joe Pantoliano eating steak and being like, if I could just like forget everything I knew and just live perpetually on the cusp of like when it was livable, when like the world that we existed in was not like fully falling into the abyss, but just teetering towards it. That would be good. That is what we've reached.
Do you remember just teetering instead of perpetually falling into the chasm?
I'm flying, Jack. I'm flying.
Oh God! What a nightmare. True nightmare. Nina Ram, thank you so much for a $10 dono. I take critic scores on Rotten Tomatoes with a pinch of salt, although I do find that they usually indicate how rough or polished a movie is, but are examples where critic scores clearly miss the mark. Well, Rotten Tomatoes is just a weird thing in general because their whole grading rubric is strange. And I don't like miss the mark. That's just a personal thing. People don't like this movie, but I do. I like this movie, but generally people don't.
Remember, it's a critic's job not to tell you how you feel about the movie, but to articulate their thoughts on the movie.
Yeah. And
yeah,
if the critic is good at that job, you read their piece, and then you're like, oh, I understand why they felt that way, whether I felt the same way or not, and then maybe you can glean a little bit from that, which I think is always great.
To be fair, though, I think like you can draw general trends, which is that like generally speaking, critical scores for horrors are quite low because there's a default assumption, I think, when you write about horror movies that they're going to be bad. So like if you were to make a list of movies that I personally, to your point, personally think don't align with my own personal taste, a lot of those would be like, I think Saw 6 is a masterpiece, and somehow it only sits at like 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. Those heathens, the Pearls Before Swine is Saw 6, maybe the best movie ever made about Obamacare. I'm only slightly joking. But like,
I mean, what movie's better about Obamacare?
Yeah, I mean the long list of endless movies we have had made about health insurance in this country. But yeah, I mean, Jennifer's Body is a recent example, but like an example I think of a movie where I think that like opinions have come around on, and I think like it is an interesting way of framing that question is, to your point, you're right to say I disagree. Rotten Tomatoes is just a personal thing. I think it is interesting to look at movies where like taste has changed over the years, where like you would go back and you would look at the film and you would be surprised at the score that it got in contemporary reviews. And I think like things like The Thing or things like Blade Runner are great examples of that, where it's like we were just as a culture not ready for those movies to be released. We just like critics were not prepared. Culture wasn't prepared, because it's not like critics got it wrong. Audiences also, everybody got it wrong. Everybody has their hand in this. But it's so weird to be like watching The Thing and being like, yeah, this is just one of the best movies ever made. And it's like, I wonder what Roger Ebert thought about it. And you're like, oh, yeah.
Also, it's always funny to mention those two movies literally released on the same day, June 25th, 82.
Beautiful.
Like that'd be a yeah.
I think everyone was just grumpy. Everyone was grumpy that day.
Yeah. Everyone was grumpy in the early 80s. We didn't have enough real problems in the world.
And the failure of both of those movies didn't cause an existential crisis in the industry that caused the studio to collapse, which is good. Yeah. It's like good that you could release two movies on the same day. They could both underperform and flop, and everyone's just like,
yeah. Both those directors were fine. Yeah, they were fine. They were fine afterwards.
Yeah.
There you go. Vactor, thank you so much.
Third film, which is insane.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because it was like he did The Jewel, he did Alien, and then he did like Blade Runner, and then he's like,
yeah,
I've peaked.
Yeah.
I'll make some great movies after this, but it's like they're never gonna be better. Never gonna be better. But we'll work continuously.
There you go. Vactor re-upped in the Green Gang, thank you so much. The 50 Cent should have named his doc What Did He Did. I haven't watched this yet.
No.
Casey was making the claim for why I should watch this, mostly because the apparently the Diddy stuff is interesting when they're talking about the sort of his involvement in the Biggie and Tupac stuff. That's the stuff I'm more interested in.
Apparently, and I don't know if this is a story Casey told us or if I heard this somewhere else, but the apparent story is Diddy was making his own doc because he thought he was going to get off on all of the charges. And so he was like, oh, let's start filming now so I can say, look it, I knew I was right.
Yeah.
And is openly talking about crimes in the doc. got arrested, so wasn't able to pay the film crew. So 50 Cent walked in and said, "I will give you the money if you give me the footage." And they said, "Okay."
Yeah.
Hilarious.
A real staircase type situation there, to be honest.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I love it's like, so double, just so we're clear, double jeopardy applies even if I haven't been proven innocent yet, right?
Like that, and the Corey Feldman doc is supposed to be incredibly damning about Corey Feldman allegedly trying to start a cult, suing his Angels backup singers, and Corey Feldman being Corey Feldman, obviously like a colorful history, ups and downs. What an incredible time to kind of watch people collapse.
Yeah.
I love, by the way, you say attempted to start a cult. Like, there is something like grimly funny about like Corey Feldman couldn't get the awful cult off. Like the thing that all bad celebrities now like have by default. Is like, I keep hitting these stones together and nothing keeps happening. Jared Leto, Alison Mack, like, what am I doing wrong here? And it's sorry, I shouldn't joke. It's terrible, but it is terrible. It is terrible. Yeah. Sorry.
But all we have is jokes, Darren. This is all we have. This is
all we have. We have nothing else.
This is all that's keeping us from teetering over.
Nick Knoll with a $10 dono. Thank you so much, Nick. Should we up the Academy Award requirements for a movie to be playing in theaters? Like forcing studios to run a movie for at least X theaters for Y weeks in Z states. How would you rewrite the rules? I don't know.
I've never cared for the theater rules are so weird anyway. They're so stupid. I think as long as it is a union production, because of course the Academy Awards is a union production. As long as it's a union production and gets released somehow, fucking let whatever happen.
Yeah, I mean, it would be
you paid these Teamsters to be on set. Fine, you're eligible. Go.
And like, to compare it to video games, that would be like, oh, we will only acknowledge a game released on Steam or one of the first party stores, and not like itch.io or
right.
I don't know. Like, also, it's one of those things where as intrigued as I am by the Oscars and the Game Awards, and I like watching them, they do not matter to me in the slightest. I enjoy watching them. I will be there watching it live the night the Oscars airs. Does not color my thoughts on any movie whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Like the problem with this stuff is that like the smart studios will figure out a way around it. They'll figure out something. Like, there's no set of rules that a smart man can't figure a way around, or a man who has enough money to hire lawyers can't figure around. And what you'll end up doing is, like, the stricter you make those rules, you'll end up doing things like excluding, say, Andrea Riseborough's like To Leslie, like her nomination for To Leslie, which is a genuine indie movie that played in 5 theaters, but is honestly, as you say, a low budget work of passion for the people who love it. And it's like, that is the film that you'll end up excluding, while Netflix finds some technicality to sneak Emilia Perez in under the radar. Like, that's the problem with those sorts of rules. It's like, what you need a system that is like smart about this stuff. Like, again, this is the not to be all like Irish centric, Hiberno-centric on the podcast, but like, it's the thing about like the MPAA and the Irish Film Classification Board, which I find so fascinating, where like the American Film Classification Board, because they have to be objective and they have to be quantifiable and they have to be strict, they have all these weird arcane rules where, like, for a PG-13 movie, you can say shit like 3 times, but if it's 4, we're going to bump you up to or. You can say fuck once, but not in a sexual context, and you can keep your PG-13. You can show blood as long as it's not red, and you'll get a PG-13 rating. And it's like, those are all technical rules because they're designed to be argued by lawyers. The thing that the Irish Film Classification Board, which is our equivalent board, is like, we just sit it in a room with a bunch of people who like movies, and they're like, yeah, that's a 15. You made the blood green, but it's very obviously blood. It's 15. That's the rule. Like, you said shit 20 times in a scene that's... The King's Speech is a great example where he just said shit. It's like, it's a joke. That's PG. Like, kids will understand that it's a joke. It's not like, you're not going to shove a gun in somebody's face and say shit face motherfucker. You're just watching Colin Firth, a stuffy British man, say it. Like, there needs to be a system where you have people who can make those determinations and can be like, well, yeah, Netflix weren't playing by the rules. This was not in the spirit of the rules. But the problem with that is that like you'll end up with a massive lobbying and spending and arguments and lawyers. So you have to have a bunch of rules that are incredibly strict, incredibly literal. And when that happens, you just have people who skirt around them, the way that Netflix currently do. Like that's the thing. That's the thing that is so galling about like the Netflix being like, of course, we're going to continue to release Warner Brothers movies in theaters. We release over 30 movies in theaters this year. And it's like, that is technically true, but not true in any way that actually matters. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, and you need a way to distinguish those, and you can't do it within the system as it works. Unfortunately, that's the problem with those rules. Unfortunately, alas.
Agreed.
Sorry.
The nightmare continues.
Sorry, that was a bit of a downer. I apologize.
Yeah, right. No.
Well, you know what you're asking people for is like, oh, I want you to actually critically think about something and use context for your information, which is like what we should be asking of everyone. But like you said, even asking for that has its downsides and caveats. And
first head of the MPAA to even suggest that would be like walked off the top of like the Disney building in Los Angeles.
Incredible. Mopman with a $2 dono. Thank you, Mopman. If Paramount ends up getting Warner Brothers, then we'd get Superman joins ICE. Truth, justice, and truly the American way.
The American way. This is the thing, though. Like, obviously, that is all true, and that is horrible. And Barry Weiss controlling CNN is like the worst possible reality we live in. But it's also worth keeping in mind that like Netflix are not like bastions of like free speech and champions of standing up to Trump. To get this through surround us is like having lunch with Trump,
bending the knee. All of these. Also, the secret is all these rich people don't give a shit about any of us. Because these deals are mostly to make, honestly, a couple dozen people that are already millionaires, make them mega millionaires or mega billionaires. And the fact
now
that it will impact, now trillionaires, and the fact that it will impact the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of people and the beloved hobby of a billion people worldwide, it doesn't matter. That's as long as those 24 people get rich, then richer.
And more money than they need, more money than they can spend in a lifetime, more money than their grandkids can spend in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Welcome to Darren has a spasm about late capitalism.
It's happening.
It's the talking point.
Still, early capitalism. What if we go back? What if we reboot capitalism?
We have to go back. I love that.
Just a hard reboot.
But Steve Rogers has to come back.
You push the button down and you hold it for 30 seconds. It's like, is your capitalism malfunctioning? It's like
we tried unplugging it and plugging it back in.
You may have noticed disturbing symptoms like trillionaires appearing. If that happens, please hold the restart button for 30 seconds.
Yikes. Speaking of, Ronald McReagan here to save us with a $5 dono. Thank you so much. I finally got to catch you live, so I have to give my own To Be Fair, Stranger Than Fiction. I love all y'all and can't wait for 12 minutes with Mooney. Happening in 2026, whether you like it or not.
I have recommended.
I just realized what 12 minutes is.
Oh yeah, you're playing it, Darren. You're playing it.
I thought it was like my new stand-up special.
Darren's got a tight 12. I think you've recommended Stranger Than Fiction. Yeah, the Will Ferrell movie where he gets an internal narration. Right?
Yeah, a little narrator. It's a fun little rom-com, dramedy, romantic dramedy. It's a really good movie. Speaking of To Be Fair, why don't we do our To Be Fair segment right now?
Wow.
Still not officially associated with Tubi yet.
Yeah, right. This is not an officially sponsored segment. We keep reaching out to them, and by we, I mean me, and they keep refusing to answer my emails. We would love to be sponsored by Tubi because it is one of my favorite streaming services because you don't even need to log in and you can watch all of these wonderful movies and TV shows, including the 2005 documentary, The Aristocrats.
Oh, there you go. There's a little peek behind the curtain of goofs.
It's just it's a bunch of comedians talking about one specific joke and why this joke is funny. Truly true. Like it's just an excuse for a bunch of comedians to tell one really awful joke.
Yeah.
And I mean awful in all senses. I think it's also a bad joke. But it's a really good exploration of comedy, looking at different comedian styles, how they interpret the same joke. Really, really fascinating movie, The Aristocrats. Available to watch for free without even signing up on Tubi.
Shout out to my fellow podcast host Andrew, who took his family to see The Aristocrats in cinemas.
Why?
Yes.
Why?
The Quinn family, like they're really great. I could never run that by my family. I gotta have respect for Andrew's game there.
Yeah. You've never like subverted the Mooney family movie nights.
So I would never, like, that trust is broken. It's never coming back. It's like theaters, Marty. If we break that, it's never coming back.
What's the furthest you've ever pushed it? Like, is there one movie where you've been like, ooh, maybe I should have thought twice about this?
No, I mean, there were, like, 1999 is, like, a great year that I remember being, like, I think at the time I was 13 years old and watching, like, movies with my parents that were kind of pushing it, where they would, like, Fight Club, like, was it not my parents' kind of movie. Being John Malkovich is not my parents' kind of movie. And I do want to shout out, my parents were great about that because they were like, Darren seems to be vibing with these. Like, we will read the story of us, the Rob Reiner movie, and that will be okay for me. And, you know, Darren will sit through that, and then we'll do Fight Club, and we'll sit through that, and Darren will enjoy that. Like, I remember, like, getting for Christmas in '99, my parents getting me the gift of the Fight Club DVD, which is like a miniature film still. Like, it's a great memory I have. I do remember watching several stories jump out at me specifically. First one is watching American Pie during the opening scene in which Jason Biggs masturbates into a sock, which my mom decides to break the tension by going, from now on, you're washing your own socks, Darren. And then
the timing.
The other one I remember is going to the cinema to see Brokeback Mountain with my gran and my aunt and various other family members. It's like a big Christmas movie thing. And if you've seen Brokeback Mountain, obviously it's a gay cowboy story. It's a gay cowboy story from like 2004 around the time. And it's a big mainstream hit. So it was the first time a movie like that had really entered the mainstream consciousness. And there was a scene in that by the standards of like mainstream cinema gets pretty graphic in terms of man on man action, and it gets quite rough. And I'm sitting there next to my gran while this scene is happening in dead silence in the cinema, and my gran leans over to me after a moment and goes, "So that's why John Wayne walked like that."
This is where you get it from. It's genetic, clearly.
Quite enjoyed the movie, to be clear. My gran actually really liked the movie, but I will always remember just the silence and the awkwardness of being, I'm guessing, 15 years old, sitting next to my 73-year-old gran watching that scene. Yeah.
What did your parents and grandparents think of The Quiet Man? Speaking of John Wayne.
Haven't really thought that much. I haven't really talked that much. I think my granddad liked it back in the day. But wouldn't really have talked that much about Wayne. More Eastwood fans. Like, that's the thing.
But no, The Quiet Man specifically. Wasn't that the Irish one?
I know. It is the John Ford Irish IRA man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Darby O'Gill and the Little People is the one that Irish people... That's the one that Irish people remember. The Quiet Man we respect. The Quiet Man, like, because it's John Ford, because it's a master of cinema, because it's a good movie, Irish people generally quite like The Informer. Yeah. It's like Darby O'Gill and the Little People is like peak Paddysploitation, Paddywhackery, if you will. But yeah, it is... That's
is that a real term? Paddywhackery?
Yeah, we try not to use it because we worry people might take it seriously. But yeah, the term paddywhackery exists. And it's Paddysploitation. But yeah.
Paddysploitation. I like it. I like the term. I don't like the act. I like the term. I think the term rolls off the tongue.
I'm all for taking that. I mean, we talked about this with like Halloween 3. Like, the great thing about the Irish is that like it's a racial stereotype that you can have fun with because like it's not rooted in like slavery or colonial, like American slavery or colonialism or that. Like, so like those cliches are kind of fun because they're so silly. Whereas like the Halloween 3 is like, but have you thought about how weird the Irish are? And like, as an Irishman, I'm like, yeah, we are pretty weird. They really got our number there. Like,
weird that you made a whole movie about this though. Like, that feels a little strange. Excellent. A couple more super chats. Sir Rog, thank you so much for the 5-year dono. Yes, while U.S. cinema is slowly going downhill, the rest of the world still exists. Are there any non-U.S. movies that got you this year? Darren, have you had a chance to see No Other Choice yet? The new
the Iranian movie. I have
no Other Choice.
No.
The
Chan-wook Park. I have not. That's on.
You
the
might be
list
thinking of
before Christmas.
well, because there's also it was just an
accident.
accident.
That's
Yeah, the
also
Jafar
next.
Panahi. I haven't seen that yet, but No Other Choice, the new film by Park Chan Wook, famously of Old Boy and Decision to Leave a few years ago. This one is an absolute banger. One of my favorite movies of the year. Again, one of those where I think best to go in blind, but I think it'll probably be in the running for best international feature, possibly even a best picture nominee. I feel like the last couple of years we've gotten a handful of international movies getting best picture
since
nominees.
Parasite won, and Parasite 1 feels like the thing that completely broke reality. It was this is so unheralded that like reality itself is just kind of warped, and the Matrix simulation has had to make some quick adjustments to prevent that from ever happening again.
Yeah,
but Parasite won, and like I do feel like you had Drive My Car. I do like Parasite also like it's a weak year for Oscar nominees. It feels like the summer slate was not great, allowing for the exceptions we've talked about. I think the horror movies were good. I think the early stuff was good. The awards season slate has been fine, generally speaking, allowing for things like Marty Supreme, which I really like. It does feel like a lot of the potential frontrunners have kind of fallen at the gate, all due respect to Ella McKay. Speaking of like Rob Reiner adjacent movies, but like speaking of like, somebody online made the observation about Ella McKay that it feels like the studio comedy has gone the way of the Western, where the only way to make it now is to make it important, and that's not a good thing for the studio comedy.
Sure, yeah.
What if it's a movie about Me Too and 2008 on top of being a James L. Brooks movie? Like, I don't know that 83-year-old James L. Brooks really has a Me Too movie in him.
And honestly, if he does, I probably don't care to hear about what he has to say. No offense. Yeah, fair. Boo-ray with a $5 dono. Thank you so much. There is a difference between swole Santa and a swollen Santa. That is true. That
goes back to our
get down your chimney,
Santa
isn't it?
talk. Yeah.
Yeah. Swollen Santa. I got a swollen Santa in here. Raven with a $2 dono. Thank you so much. Jack. That is all. Have a good day, guys. That was it.
Thanks, Raven.
Yeah. It's a good call.
Quintuple A with a $5 dono. Thanks, Quintuple. By the time Marty reads this, Jack will be nervously looking at his watch, debating whether or not an Uber would be worth it to pick up his kids. Wait, this is fine. We're ahead. We're way ahead of schedule. We're already done with our topics. We're cruising down super chats. We just got the movies we've been watching.
We have one more kind of controversial thing that might take up a little bit of time, but I still have I have 45 minutes before I'm running late, and I have 35 minutes before I should leave. So we're
okay. Oh my God, we'll get there easily. The famous last words. Absolutely.
Some of the diamond in the rough here. Yeah.
Infamously famous last words. B. Smalley, thank you so much. A $2 dono. What other Orwell movies can we put Seth Rogen in? Seth Rogen's 1984.
Oh God,
that feels like that could be a goof on Studio 2 or season 2 of the studio,
right?
Well, they're doing Venice, isn't it? Like, and again, the joke is that they're probably going to do an entire episode set during a standing ovation.
The standing ovation, like a 25-minute standing ovation, where the character's like, "Why is this still happening? Like, we need to stop that," which would be great. Boo-ray back with another $2 dono. Thank you so much. Thoughts on Critical Drinker review videos? I don't watch very many of them, but for all I've seen, he sucks.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of talking about other YouTube creators, but I would not be my kettle of fish.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard of this person. So great.
Yeah, kind of a right-wing grifter YouTuber that the reason movies are bad is because women and minorities.
Women and minorities and like masculinity being eroded and stuff like that. And
then I will continue not knowing about this YouTuber. Great.
There you go. Sussy Guru with a €10 dono. Thank you so much. A professional critic often sees and writes about aspects and layers of a movie that I, as a big dum-dum, can't see at a first glance, and which improve the movie for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's great.
That's the great thing about critical writing. Like, I love it. I love reading like a critic, even a critic I don't agree with, like Angelica Jade Bastien, who's like a 50-50 in terms of opinions Darren shares with her. Mm-hmm. When you read it and it's like, that is an insane way of looking at the movie that I never really thought about. And like every once in a while you'll read something that will just like unlock a movie for you, which is kind of incredible. Mm-hmm. Where like, you're like, I didn't figure this. And not that movies are puzzle boxes to be solved. The beauty of movies is that like everybody sees a movie and interprets it in their own way. We see the same movie, but we interpret it in our own ways, and we make sense of it in our own ways, and we make the connections in our own ways. The movie that Jack sees isn't always the exact same movie that I see, and that's beautiful. And like me getting to see what Jack sees and Jack getting to see what I see is kind of the beauty of this. But it is like, it's incredible to like have somebody open up a movie for you and go like, actually, that makes sense. I hadn't thought of that. That is a little detail that I had missed, or I hadn't paid attention to, or I wasn't watching for. And now that that has been revealed to me, or somebody's pointed out what they have seen of it, it's like everything else falls into place. It's like a little Jenga block. It's incredible.
Yeah, or even how those thoughts are organized. I had that yesterday with your Wake Up Dead Man column. If that was yesterday or a couple days ago, I don't remember when that was.
What is time even?
What is time? But obviously, I'd seen the movie twice by that point. We talked it kind of at length in the last episode, but the way you articulated especially the kind of the reveal of the movie and what Benoit Blanc does during it, no spoilers, it was one of those things where it's like I had the meal made in my head. I had every dish, but the way you plated it in your column was like, oh fuck yeah, that's how all of those things go together. Yes, which is great. And I think a lot of times that stuff only does come through in something that's scripted or written. Yeah. Like there are some times where it's harder to get to those to exactly articulate that point on a podcast, as opposed to something that you could sit down and write something and then go back to it an hour later and rewrite it and sort of formulate your thoughts and everything. So I thought that was great. Yeah. Perfect. And then Trumando with a $5 dono. Thank you. Darren, do you think if Netflix gets WB, would it bring back certain aspects of Snyder's DC verse? Also, congrats on a person on obligatory the 250.
On a person, I'm like, who's a person on the? Anyway,
that's one of you. I mean, you're one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I assume
congrats to your co-host for taking his parents to some more fucked up movies.
Yes. Very curious, like how Andrew is going to approach other, like now that he's on the other side of that, how that is going to be for Andrew. Yeah. But yeah, obviously, like we mentioned big life stuff happened with Andrew, which is great and incredible. And like we're on hiatus, but we're on hiatus for the best possible reason, which is great. Like it's like. It's good to be on hiatus for good reasons, which is great. But yeah, what was the first thing before? Oh, it was Netflix. It was Netflix and the Snyderverse. I mean, look, part of me is like that, like Ted Sarantos' comments, right? Where he's like, obviously he's saying whatever he needs to say to get through the deal. Like he's saying whatever he says to make the smoothest path of least resistance. And that includes like Trump. That includes the Warner Brothers board, and that includes like people online, and that includes even people on Twitter, right? Because it's like if you can placate the people on Twitter and you're not constantly trending in hashtag cinema's dead, that is good for you because it means less news coverage about how cinema's dead and people trending or whatever. And part of me is like, when he was saying, because he actually did have a quote about this when he was asked about DC. And he didn't say, I'm going to keep Gunn. We're very happy with how Superman performed. Because my gut feeling is that, like, that is done. Like, my gut feeling is that, like, the modern version of the DCU is done because what's the purpose of buying it if you're not going to, like, make it your own? Why would you buy the IP if you didn't have a vision for it or a purpose for it or a plan for it? Why would you buy it and just keep something somebody started a couple of months ago? And I think it's very telling that, like, the success of Superman, so to speak, has just led to, well, we're going to make a sequel to Superman as quickly as possible. We're going to literally sneak it in under the wire. Superman 2 is coming in 2027, which is insane in terms of scheduling a big summer blockbuster. I don't doubt that like Gunn can do it. Gunn is an incredibly fast filmmaker. He's an incredibly good writer. He will get it in. It'll be a reasonably well-made movie. It'll be competent. It'll be better than a lot of blockbusters, etc. I don't doubt that. But like part of it is also like, that is very clearly, I am rushing to get something in before Netflix can come into my office and tell me to pack my stuff and leave. Yeah. And the signal that Sarandos said, while not saying anything about the state of the current IP franchise stuff, was, you know what I really liked? I like the Penguin, and I'm thinking that we could go back and we could do like mini series and films about, you know, other earlier like DC properties that people liked. And I was like, that is such a blatant dog whistle to like the Snyder fans, because like, you know, like that's the thing. It's where, and this is a very depressing way of talking about this, where the IP doesn't matter. Like I don't. In the grand scheme of the universe of like movie making, and I say this as somebody who thinks Gunn is an incredibly talented filmmaker who like loves several Batman movies, who like really looking forward to Matt Reeves' The Batman 2, who lives in a room full of comic books, as listeners can see. In the grand scheme of things, the IP doesn't matter, because like, you know, like it's the medium as a whole, the industry as a whole. As Marty said, it's people's jobs. It's the well-being of theaters. It's the existence of the model as a whole. In that grand scheme of things, I don't really care who runs DC Studios or who makes the next Harry Potter property or how many Hunt for Gollum movies we're getting. All that stuff is kind of like incidental.
Stop bringing up the Hunt for Gollum. I'm able to forget that exists until Tuesdays.
I also like that it's like within this podcast. Enough time had passed since the last reference to it that I had slipped back into not remembering.
Damn it.
But like, my thing is though, that is like, it is so cynical. Where like every time this comes out, all the gossip is through the prism of they're going to reboot the DC universe, or oh, this is good for Snyder fans, and it's like, the Snyderverse is never coming back in any meaningful, substantive way or whatever, and I say that as somebody who, to be clear, quite liked Batman versus Superman, thinks that it's great that Snyder eventually got to make his Justice League just on principle, and I actually do really like that movie for all of its success, and perhaps because of all of its success, right? But I'm like, that is done, and that is over, and that is the past, and we need to move forward. That, like, we should not be looking back to go back to that in the same way that we shouldn't be looking to go back to, Tim Burton's Batman. We shouldn't be looking to go back to Nolan's Batman. We should be moving forward and doing new things and etc. But it was just like when Sarandon said, I would love to take existing old versions of these DC properties and make like miniseries of them. I was like, that is just going to lead to another 5 years of Netflix restore the Snyderverse hashtag stuff on Twitter. And I was like, that is not the worst thing in the world, but it is also like not a good thing, because it's just going to make it unbearable to talk about that stuff for them. Sorry, listeners can't see, but I'm closing my eyes as if wincing while saying this out loud. But it will make it impossible to talk about that stuff online for the next 5 years. And it is such a cynical move. And look, I think it is entirely possible that like something happens at Netflix because they have more money than God. They have a relationship with Snyder. And like, look, it's probably easy enough to throw together an anime like spin-off version of that.
Sure.
Part of me was always like, on a long enough curve, Snyder was going to get to fulfill his like Justice League trilogy in comic book form. Like that was always going to be the thing. In like 10 years from now, DC Comics are going to publish some like artisanal, like scripted adaptation of his plans for the two big Justice League things, and they'd release them as premium format graphic. I know Jack is now wince. This is now Jack's turn to wince. But like that was always the inevitable long-term outcome of this, was like the version of doing the graphic novel of William Gibson's version of Alien 3. You were going to see some other media adaptation of those stories because you gotta milk it. You gotta make money. It's sitting around. It's not generating revenue. Like it's just a waste.
This is why I'm wincing, because you gotta milk it. We gotta squeeze every bit of
I'm milking it. So I do think that like you were always going to get like a graphic novel. I didn't think you were ever going to see like a film or television adaptation of it. I do think now with Netflix, it is one step closer to actually being a thing. I don't think you're going to see a live action adaptation. I certainly don't think it's going to be quote unquote the DC universe going forward. And no reality is that going to be the case. I think you might see an animated, like anime type spin-off, because that could be produced relatively cheaply. You can get Snyder's name attached to it, and you can presumably recruit like I love that like Eric's like bring back Titans, the TV show.
First of all, example of Netflix's DC type thing. Titans was good. I liked Titans a lot.
Fuck Batman.
Fuck Batman.
That's the only thing I remember from Titans.
Yeah.
Titans. I will defend Titans. I will. Fuck Batman was hilarious.
No, and well, like there's a reason it's in pop culture. And sometimes somebody needs to say "fuck Batman." As somebody who likes Batman, I'm like, you know what? He can take.
We're always talking about marrying Batman and killing Batman, and no one's ever talking about fucking Batman.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like maybe some of his issues would be resolved if he did a little fucking. Like
This is all we're saying.
Yeah.
Batman infamously, Batman not horny enough.
Yeah.
Famously.
I mean, is Netflix going to issue a statement clarifying that Batman does not perform cunnilingus on Catwoman?
Yeah, sure.
There's like a little approach.
Yeah, before you watch Batman Returns, that's just like a little like a PSA, almost like if you watch Song of the South. Like, listen, this was made in a different time where people were allowed to be horny.
I do love the idea of it being Whoopi Goldberg as well, who like films the introduction to that. Now you may have some questions after watching Batman Returns. These do not reflect the values of the Warner Brothers company as it currently exists.
Thanks, Whoopi.
This is not, in fact, the pussy we've been looking for.
This is sadly. Let's talk about the other stuff we've been watching. We'll wrap up the super chats afterwards. Jack, you and I have a shared film we watched because I said I saw a trailer for a movie that looks pretty cool and it's only 90 minutes. And the description of it was, what if an aging James Bond was reflecting on his life, but it was filmed experimentally, almost like a Cronenberg or like a Lynch movie. And so that is all I knew about it. And so I said, there's this movie called Reflections in a Dead Diamond that just premiered on Shudder, and it's 87 minutes. And so we both watched it. Jack, what do you think of Shudder's Reflection in a Dead Diamond?
My tolerance for arty-farty bullshit is relatively high, and this broke right through it. So it's an interesting concept. An aging James Bond type spy who might be a spy, might be an actor who played in a spy movie, might just be a regular old corporate assassin. We don't know, is having a trouble distinguishing reality from fiction from memory. And it's a really fascinating idea with a lot of good imagery, including the imagery of our main villain who has the ability to like don different faces, and a little Mission Impossible-esque where you're kind of ripping off skin to reveal new people. Some really phenomenal imagery in an overall package that is tiring to watch. That is
only 90 minutes.
At only 90 minutes, I paused halfway through just to walk around my house to be like, fuck, when will it end? It is okay. Here's my controversial artist statement. I'm gonna say this out loud, but I want the ability to walk you through how I feel. I think if you produce a piece of art and the audience doesn't understand what you are trying to say with that piece of art, that is you failing as an artist. That's my bold statement. Obviously, there's.
How do you feel about Lynch?
We've talked famously about this, do not like Lynch.
No. You know what? To Jack's credit, though, he was very nice when we did our conversation about Lynch passing away. Jack just wasn't like, sucks, smokes a cigarette.
Time.
Boring.
No. By the way, like, I respect both Lynch as an artist and anyone who is an avant-garde experimental filmmaker. Make your art. If you don't want to tell us your meaning through your art, that is your choice as an artist. This is me as a critic and as a commentator saying, I don't like that. Personally, I think you have failed as an artist if you don't convey your meaning through your art. That's a personal feeling. You stay off those keyboards, everybody. You settle down.
Not typing anything. And so Reflections of a Dead Diamond, I think, I'm pretty darn sure, is trying to say something. But at the end of the day, what it's trying to say might just be, getting old and losing your memory kind of sucks. I think that can be saying something.
And that's trite and not worth some of the wonderful imagery that we get in the movie.
Smoking a cigarette going, everybody's dying. Everybody dies. Like,
I'm going to respectfully disagree with Jack. I might go as far to say I loved this movie. I might literally go as far to say I love this movie. I understand that some people are like, this is all style, no substance, but I do feel like in the right hands, your style is the substance. And I think that's what this movie
that Corley
is.
Farshette.
Go kick rocks, Demi Moore. No, I think the way this movie plays with time and memory, where in a single scene, characters and almost into that imagery of reflections in a diamond, of seeing something, then seeing it all of a sudden there's 100 different versions of it. The way it plays with time, where the actor will oscillate between the old version of him and the young version of him in a single scene, and like you said, you kind of feel like unmoored from time and space. And for me, that did put me in the mindset of like, trying to articulate, whether it's dementia, whether it's just memory, whether it's just regret, anything like that, trying to articulate the way your brain will sort of latch on to small things and glom them together in a way that doesn't make sense narratively. Like, I don't think I don't want to write a book report about this movie of what happened in this movie, because I'm not 100% sure. Because like you said, he might have been a spy. Maybe he was an actor. Maybe none of this happened. Maybe he just has dementia.
Right.
But for me, that there's enough creative energy through the imagery, through both the color that's sort of like way overblown, like giallo color throughout the movie. The way the violence is like extremely graphic but cartoonish at the same time. The recurring imagery of diamonds, like it has its own kind of Bond opening theme and opening montage that I think is like really beautiful. I don't know, the movie worked for me. If this movie was longer than 90 minutes, I think I might have, if this was 2 hours, if this was 2.5 hours, I think it may have felt like a slog. But for me, it's dealing with the classic Bond stuff, like using those as your jumping off point, I love. And it was just short enough to where I was kind of locked in. That being said, this is one of those movies where I am not recommending this movie to a lot of people. I am not.
I learned my lesson. I am willing to take feedback.
No. It's just in a way that like Weapons, Sinners, One Battle After Another are some of my favorite movies of the year that I wholeheartedly recommend. 28 years later, one that I recommend with a caveat. I recommend only the specific group of people. I have friends where I'm like, I don't think you're going to like 28 years later. So use some caution
again, I do want to applaud a lot of the imagery in the movie. It is really like, it is novel. It is evocative is the word I was looking for. It is really, really neat. There are a lot of positive aspects to this movie in a overall package that I didn't care for, and that's fine, because
there you go.
We can like and not like different things. It's okay.
So you know what that means, Darren? You have to watch the movie and then tell us which one's right and wrong, because clearly one of us is right and one of us is wrong. We just have to figure out who.
It has to be objectively. We got to get that Rotten Tomatoes score. It's going to be either 33 or 66. It can't be 50.
No, can't be 50.
Can't be.
What happens if I come back and I say I'm mixed?
Oh fuck! It's fine. It was whatever. I was on my phone most of the time.
Yeah.
I love that we'll just go around the second win team until we break the tie.
Perfect.
No, and I do love
on Shudder.
I love supporting Shudder. Shudder is a great streaming service. Really wonderful thing. I don't know if this is new. It's been a while since I've been on Shudder. Shudder just has a live thing now where they are just playing their content live. So you can just click over and start watching something midway through, just like in the olden days.
Yeah, it's a TV channel. Again,
is that only on the app, or is that, because I have Shudder through Amazon?
Oh, it might only be on the app, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
Criterion does something similar as well. Like there is this kind of push towards getting TV channels back. Like this is the thing. Yeah. Like it is so. Sorry, welcome to circling back to the hellscape and conversation. But it is like so frustrating that like these companies, these tech companies arrived with unlimited pools of money, disrupted the industry, broke a whole bunch of stuff, spent widely while their competitors like drove themselves off a cliff trying to compete with them. And then at the end of the process, they arrive back at, you know what seems to be a sustainable way of doing this? 1, having advertising. 2, having TV channels. 3, making it cheap to watch, but like revenue by forcing people to watch the advertisements that are on there. It's like, you just invented cable. Like,
what if we release an episode of this show once a week over the course of like 4 months, and it builds up popularity?
What if we play stuff so that our customers can stumble upon our content, but like we curate it?
And like,
what if we just put some commercials in here?
It's insane. It's like, how did you come up with that, Barry? It's like, I don't know. I was just like staring into space in a chair, and it just hit me.
So no, shout out to Shudder. Obviously, a wonderful horror streaming channel. But this is a Shudder original, which probably just mean they paid for distribution. But
oh yeah,
is fine. It's just not my cup of tea.
Not your cuppa. Did you watch anything else this week that aside from the Christmas stuff?
No, we are full blown Christmas. The spirit of the season has taken over, and it will be nothing but Christmas crap from here on out, except for.
I was about to say, what about? Does your household have a temperature on Fallout now premiering tonight?
Shit! Oh, I gotta watch that. No, I forgot.
Yeah, first episode premieres tonight.
Pretty good.
Yeah, weekly. What a concept.
I don't know. Never mind. Forget I said it was pretty good. I don't know if I can say.
You know what? The trailer was pretty good. Darren saw the trailer.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
I am
got you out of that one.
Big fan of season 1. I really enjoyed season 1, so I'm coming in with I came in with no expectations, but now I am coming in with some expectations, which is a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
It's going through a story arc that I know very well, or at least a setting that I know very well, as I've played Fallout New Vegas more than any of the other Fallout games. Yeah. So now,
regarded as the best of the games, have I picked up on?
Amongst the hoity-toity.
Okay. Oh, the kind of people who like Reflections in a Dark Diamond.
Wait, no, New Vegas people say is their favorite, right? That's like common. That was the one I played.
Oh my god, it is literally the Reflections in a Dark Diamond.
No. What's happening?
Oh no, you.
Jack's like, the hoity-toity New Vegas fans. And Marty's like, no.
That was the one Jack told me to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed myself.
I'm the hoity-toity in this scenario. 100%. I'm the hoity-toity.
There's levels of hoity-toity. Yeah. This is a tower of hoity-toity. Yeah.
No, but in general, it is considered to be the best story, if not like the best game. It's the best story. So
sure.
That's so Matthew Perry, right?
Yes, the one with Matthew Perry, Dave Foley is in it.
Yeah.
Hellboy.
Hellboy. Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman does a voice in it.
You could have said David Harbour. Does everyone remember when David Harbour was Hellboy? Because I don't.
There was also the one after David Harbour.
Which no one remembers. I don't even know who played Hellboy in that one.
That's right. Felicia Day was in it. So it's we're now wading into territory that I know, and so the expectations are cranked up quite a bit. Yeah. But they have a really
the trailers have looked cool, and the casting seems cool. Like doing Justin Theroux as what's his name, Mr. Computer. I can't remember his name. Mr. Computer.
Mr. House?
Yeah, Mr. House.
Which I know.
God damn it, it's happening again. Darren knows more about games than I do. Shit.
Marty, the only way that I know that is because I played the game. I don't know it any other way. There is no other way that I
just played this game like a month ago.
That was several months ago. There was warm outside. There were flowers and animals.
Like several years ago, Snow White was in theaters, so I'm guessing like 2023.
Listen, I called him Mr. Computer, and Darren knew who he was.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited about that. I have a used DVD pen pal, and I just got a copy of the original Italian Job.
Ooh.
Which I'd never seen. I've only seen the Marky Mark remake.
Not bad, I will say. I like it.
You know the deal with that. That was like the Ed Norton Spite movie, right? That was the one where he had to make due to contractual obligations.
Oh, that's right.
Like, where Ed Norton is just like, he was under contract to Paramount, and it was like, you're gonna have to make something. He's like, fine, I'll make the stupid fucking Marky Mark movie.
Hell yeah. So I'm excited to watch that. That's on my kind of like holiday time watch list. So that's and just all the fucking Christmas movies I can stomach.
Oh my god, you're gonna throw up. There's so many of them.
Hell yeah.
Darren, what have you been watching?
Just very quickly, obviously we mentioned the Silent Night, Violent Night movies. Just to run through them very quickly. One, interesting, cheap, very like Reagan era coded, which is fascinating. This kind of like consumerism commentary, this kind of like weird slasher movie commentary, where like the voyeurism of slasher movies, where you watch slasher movies to watch people get punished, but you also, there's a puritanical element because you're watching them be punished while watching them do the naughty stuff. So it is that kind of like really interesting frisson. Again, very, very Christmassy, very, religiousy, very Reagan-y, consumerism, morality intermixed. It's not good. It does not work at all.
No,
it is incredibly lazy and incredibly cheap. The performances are very, very bad, but there is an element of something there. 2 is infamously terrible. If you've not seen 2 2 has to be seen to be believed, where the first 45 minutes of the second movie are just a recap of the first movie, where they play footage of the first movie as a character narrates it to his therapist, and then in the second half he commits some murders that are barely holiday themed. 3 is really interesting because 3 has like all of the David Lynch actors in it. It was released like a year before Twin Peaks, and it has like Eric Del Rey is in there.
Love Eric Del Rey.
Laura Herring from whatchamacallit from Mulholland Drive is in there. And Richard Beymer is in there. While they're all ripping off like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. It is very bad, but it's so fascinating that it's like this casting agent clearly had good taste, even though the movie ended up being terrible. 4 is really interesting. Like, it has some really great special effects. Again, this is the thing about watching like classic horror movies. People talk about like watching 90s movies and how like Jingle All the Way looks like it's shot by like an Oscar-winning cinematographer. Every Christmas, there's always people online who will snip clips from like Jingle All the Way, and you could tell me it was from a forgotten Spielberg movie. Where there's a moment where the wife is like washing her hair in the bathroom, and she throws her head down, and the camera dolly zooms through the mirror to Schwarzenegger's stunned face, and you're like, that is an impressively elaborate camera movement for a mid-tier forgotten studio commentary from the mid-90s. But yeah, like, but with like the Silent Night, Violent Night thing, it is, or Silent Night, Deadly Night 4, it's like the special effects are incredible because it's all practical effects. It's all like skin blending. It's that sort of, it's the director of Society, for example, but it's got like all this kind of like graphic body horror, which is beautifully and grotesquely rendered, but in a way that you just don't do anymore outside of movies like The Substance, for example. And it's really fascinating because the movie itself is terrible, but I'm watching those scenes and I'm like, they did this practically. They came up with a way to do this stuff in a way that like involved the appliance of prosthetics, that took time, that took effort, that had to be lit and shot and framed carefully. I actually, like, you know, as bad as the movie is, when that gore starts happening, it was really, really interesting. 5, as we mentioned, is bad, but bad in a masterpiece way. 6, which is the reboot with what's his name, Malcolm McDowell and Jamie Presley, is quite bad, or Jamie King. Sorry, I always get my Jamies mixed up. Is quite bad and generic. Donal Logue is Santa in there. Again, it feels like a movie that is coming close to saying something about like post-Great Recession America and like this idea of like what it is to live in a town that has been gutted and the commercialism of Christmas after the collapse of the financial markets. But it just turns into like a bad version of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which, by the way, is another movie that I think that Rotten Tomatoes maybe got a bit wrong, Darren says controversially. In terms of like actual movies that I saw, to rush through them very, very, very quickly, Jay Kelly, which is the Netflix movie about how movie stars are great and film festivals are incredible. And remember how much we love movie culture and we would like a Best Picture Oscar, please. It is an interesting film. It does not really work for me. It has the feel of, I think somebody described Deadpool and Wolverine as like a serial killer eulogizing their victims, talking about like Disney creating this loving like celebration of the Fox like X-Men movies. This feels a bit like that. This is the same like serial killer eulogizing his victims energy, where it's like Netflix is like, hey, remember classic cinema? Remember movie stars?
Yeah,
remember
you fucking
theaters?
killed them, Netflix.
It's like,
yeah, we remember them.
Really shame those things are going away, but don't you love them so much? And wouldn't you like to give us some awards for how much we love them as well? It is fine. It is like, again, it's Baumbach directing, Clooney starring, Sandler starring as well. And like the thing is, like, Sandler is one of those guys where it's like, he is so good at this stuff. I wish that he would do more of it, the kind of dramatic stuff. Because you mentioned the idea of Stranger Than Fiction earlier, and I was thinking about that idea of like, who is the best comedian to do drama? And part of me is like, it might be Sandler. Like, Sandler may be the best.
Might
like,
have the highest highs, yeah.
Yeah. Like when he does things like Uncut Gems or Punch Drunk Love, even, although Punch Drunk Love is a comedy, but like when he hits the drama of that. No, but when he hits the drama of that before. Oh, it's a hoity-toity comedy, Jack. It's the hoity-toity Adam Sandler movie.
Yes. I accept the term hoity-toity comedy.
Like, that stuff is good, but it has a whole bunch of other stuff with Laura Dern that doesn't need to be there. It meanders a lot. It's very indulgent. It's very like, it's a movie about like how important movie stars are, and those movies always feel like indulgent in the worst possible way. It's like throwing yourself a party. It feels kind of sad in a way, where it's like, watch the film industry tell you a story about how important the film industry is. And yet, despite that, I do find myself strangely moved when like George Clooney sits down at the end to watch a montage of George Clooney's greatest moments. And I'm like, I feel good that George Clooney's getting to appreciate the wonder that is George Clooney. Good for him. So like, 3-star movie where it's like it is fine, it is overlong, it is indulgent, it has no surprises in it, doesn't have any real depth or complexity to it, but I did find myself like very moved by it. Hamnet.
Did you see it in theaters or on Netflix?
I saw it on Netflix, unfortunately.
Okay.
Again, one fun story. That probably played more at festivals than in theaters. I think that Baumbach has talked about it taking this to 27 theaters. He screened Jay Kelly at 27 film festivals worldwide, which is insane. And that movie did not get a wide release. Hamnet, which is the Jesse Buckley's going to win an Oscar movie, the story about the writing of like Hamlet by William Shakespeare. I liked this movie. I didn't quite love it. It didn't quite get over the line. This is obviously based on the popular theory that like the story of Hamlet was inspired by the death of Hamnet, the son of Agnes and Will Shakespeare, and that Hamlet is an expression of grief over the loss of one's son, because obviously that is a story about a son grieving a father, so you have the inversion of it and all this sort of stuff. It is directed by Chloe Zhao, who is a really interesting director. I think, like Marty, you and I are fonder of the Eternals than any other human being.
Eternals gang, rise up.
Yeah,
Hoity-toity MCU.
2026.
Never the twixt shall meet.
I am so looking forward to seeing Cersei and Drew and Kingu, all my favorite guys. Oh, Black Knight, he's in there too, and Blade. Don't forget Blade. I'm looking forward to
It is insane that there's a better chance that we get Ben Affleck's Daredevil in these Avengers movies than anyone from the Eternals. It is insane.
Anyone who even appeared in Eternals, not even like anybody who touched that movie by association is like not in.
Poison Blade. It Poison Blade because of a voice, the final stinger.
But what I will say is, like, Zhao is a director who I kind of respect more than I love. She's a very smart director, and again, very interesting to hear her talk about her process. But I think she's very clever in how she makes her movies. And one of the things about Zhao's movies, which I find really interesting, is that Zhao is this incredibly observational filmmaker. Her first film, like The Rider, is like semi-biographical about its subject. Nomadland, which is the one that won Best Picture and won her Best Director, is like they use real nomads to make that. They film on location. They use like real Amazon factories to make that. And like the thing that I do like about Eternals, for all of its indulgent messiness, is that it's a superhero movie that is like agnostic on the question of, does the world deserve to be saved? Which is kind of an incredible thing to put in a superhero movie, where like Kumail Nanjiani just nopes out of the third act of Eternals, where he's like, you know what? I don't think the world deserves to be saved, and just walks out of the movie, and then he's back in the final scene as if nothing happened, because like it's people of good conscience can disagree with one another. What I like about Hamnet is that Hamnet takes the same approach to art, where it is one of the big discussions about the movie is the question of like emotional manipulation. A lot of people are like, that movie doesn't work for me because I feel like I'm being emotionally manipulated. It's the story of a dead child, and it's the story of the movement of grief, the way in which you channel the grief over the loss of a child into the creation of art. And it is like incredibly manipulative and incredibly cynical. And there's a lot of people who are like, I can feel the artist's hand moving me and guiding me and trying to make me feel a particular way. And that, to be honest, is kind of what I like about the movie, because the movie is kind of about that. In that, like, in the way that like Zhao's films are. Zhao like takes a step back and is like, I am showing you something, and I want you to think about the relationship of that thing to how you feel about that thing. I want you to ask, does the world deserve to be saved? I want you to ask, what does it mean to be a nomad? I want you to look at this person playing themselves in a movie and ask what the difference is between what you're seeing and who the person is. And here, she's asking you to look at the idea of an artist taking a hugely formative personal tragedy, putting it on screen, and making their grief something that is experienced collectively by a crowd. And I will say the climax of the movie, which, slight spoiler for the movie called Hamnet, does feature the performance of the play Hamlet, is stunning. It's one of the most incredible things I've seen this year. And it's literally just Jessie Buckley in a crowd watching the performance of Hamlet for the first time and seeing her grief, the pain that she has felt locked up inside herself, being shared among these hundreds of strangers who are moving through the same journey that she has had. And I think that's a really beautiful statement about like what art is in inverted commas, but it is about the idea of using art to make people feel something. And the idea of like making people feel something fosters a connection and it bonds us together. And like I do think that is a very clever thing. I think it's a very thoughtful thing. I think it's like far more interesting way of approaching the material than simply telling the story of, well, here's the secret history of Hamlet. A kid died.
Spoilers.
I liked it. I will say the problem is that because it is like so clever and because it's about emotional manipulation, I will say I feel that, so I engage with it more intellectually than emotionally. I talk to people who are like, I bawled through the final act of Hamlet. I cried my eyes out, and I'm like, I didn't. And that doesn't mean I didn't like it, but I was like, I was watching it, stroking my chin, being hoity-toity, going, this is a very clever exploration of the role that art plays in navigating human emotions. And it's like, as a result, I'm thinking that I'm not feeling human emotions, which is a really interesting thing. So I liked it. I would recommend it. It did not move me. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but I liked it a lot.
That joke really was funny. It was a quality setup and a decent twist for a payoff. That joke, really quality work.
When you watch it on a whiteboard, it's like the best jokes have to be explained using a whiteboard. I mean, we just talked about the aristocrats.
Yeah, exactly. No different.
Really dissected. I love that Chloe Zhao would be like, yeah, that's exactly what I was aiming for.
It's 100% what I had in mind. Yeah.
SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants, which is the first piece of SpongeBob media I have ever consumed, and it's fine. It's fine. Like it's like really interesting because that's been around for at this stage 20 years, right?
A long time.
Yeah.
And I was like, do kids still like this? Like, this is weird because I just missed this. I'm just a little bit too old to have watched SpongeBob, like just on the cusp of it. And I'm like, do kids still love this stuff though? Like, does this speak to a current 7-year-old? And the answer, by the way, for listeners, spoiler, is yes. Yes, it does speak to a current 7-year-old. I know because I asked a current 7-year-old. But I will say, as somebody who watched it, I was like quite taken by how like quaint it feels. Where it reminds me a lot of like the Cartoon Network stuff I grew up with, like Johnny Bravo, Dexter's Laboratory, the stuff that is like a little less cynical than Ren and Stimpy, but is like playful and self-aware, which I kind of liked a lot. So yeah, I guess if you have kids and you want to take them to something over Christmas, I guess Search for SquarePants is fine. Sentimental Value, I quite liked as the weird European counterpart to Jay Kelly. That's the weird, is it Oedipal or is it just European, I think is the question I asked coming out of it. It's the story of like Stellan Skarsgård as like this old European director who has a troubled relationship with his daughters, one of whom is a former actress, one of whom is a current actress, who writes a script for one of them where they're playing his mother, because of course it is, because it's a European movie, but instead he casts Elle Fanning, and he sort of has weird romantic chemistry with Elle Fanning, who is playing his mother in a part that was written for his daughter. And it's an interesting movie. Again, very much like Chloe Zhao's Hamlet. I'm like, there are layers to this I'm picking apart, but I'm like stroking my chin going, this is very clever. I see what you're doing here. I'm not really going along with you on the journey, so to speak. I don't feel like I'm happy to observe whatever you're doing. Don't ask me to participate. Stellan Skarsgård.
That's from Joachim Trier, the guy who did Worst Person in the World a couple of years ago, which I thought was great. Yeah. I'm excited to watch this one.
And it like, again, it's very well made. It is very effective. It is very funny in parts. There is a wonderful joke, which is, I guess, the cinephile equivalent of making Hugh Jackman wear the yellow costume in Deadpool and Wolverine, where like you point and you go, I recognize those two movies. That is a funny joke because I recognize those two movies. I again, good time at it. Avatar: Fire and Ash is fine.
Big Jim don't miss.
No, Big Jim hit the target squarely, exactly where he intended to. Like, this is the thing about Fire and Ash, which is so... Okay, there are several things that are interesting about Fire and Ash. The thing that is really interesting about Fire and Ash is, like, the question of, can you make just another Avatar movie?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it possible to reach a point where, like, you just make another Avatar movie? Because, obviously, the first one in 2009 was, like, a huge event. It was, like, game-changing. We had no idea you could do this. The special effects are incredible. The 3D is wonderful, right? And you wait so long to make The Way of Water that when that comes out, you're like, oh my god, it's incredible. It's been so long since we had one of these. This is coming out only 2 years after Way of Water. And for those who are aware of the production of this was originally, like, Way of Water was meant to be this, and like the second and third movie were split. The second and third movie began as the second movie and were split into the second and third movie. And you can really feel that watching it, because a lot of elements of the third movie are quite repetitive of the second movie. And it's not as if the second movie is an entirely original creation that made bold choices and like carved new narrative paths through well-worn thoroughfares. What is interesting is that, like, in order to split them out, you can tell going back that, like, the stuff that Cameron added into all the underwater stuff, all the whale stuff, that is the stuff that he added to extend it out and necessitate the split. That is the best stuff about 2, and it is not really present in 3, which is a problem. I will say, because it is a Cameron movie, as predictable as it is, as generic as it is, as safe as its narrative is, as much as it hits all the beats you expect it to, as much as it repeats the beats of the previous movie, because of course it's just an extension of it, there are still some incredibly weird James Cameron-esque choices. Like, for example, a sweet moment of bonding between a child and a herd of beautiful fish, in which she ends the conversation by saying, kill them all, as they massacre every human being on the surface of Pandora. Or the weird, villainous, like, slightly problematic, indigenous, like, savage, noble character played by Una Chapman in a frankly incredible performance, which is like the evil mirror of the relationship between Sully and Neytiri, where you have the character of Stephen Lang's character, the villainous character. He, again, there's her photo, Eric's on ball here, where there's this weird Dom fire lady savage woman played by Una Chaplin, who, not to spoil anything, may be exactly Darren's type, but who lives inside what can only be described as a portable vagina dentata Burning Man. And it's like you're watching it and you're like, yeah, no, this is uniquely from the mind of James Cameron. This is like, there's no way this is the process of notes. There's no way that this originated in a room full of writers going, what do the kids want today? There's the great question mark from, like, Cameron is asked during interviews, why is it in 3D and why is it in high frame rate? Those are two formats that don't really exist anymore. You know, how do you justify that? And he's like, well, one, $2.9 billion answers your question. But second of all, because it's my movie and I like it. Yeah. And it's like, there is an element of that to these movies that I like. For all that they are straightforward, for all they are predictable, I love the fact that they are undoubtedly his movies. And like, the thing about the movie that works is that relationship between Quaritch, who is the Stephen Lang character, and the like evil witch savage colonial stereotype lady played by Una Chapman, who lives inside a vagina dentata like roving burning man, is like it's him.
I love knowing that that's your type.
That's why I'm single so often. You don't meet these women every day, Jack. It's like,
Darren, James Cameron only makes a movie once every year.
Okay, when you next time you vacation to America, we'll take you to Burning Man. Fine.
I'll get you halfway there. But like it's him. He Terminator 2's Avatar, which is kind of an incredible thing. The thing about Terminator 2 is that like Terminator 2 takes the original premise of Terminator and turns it on its head. It's like, Arnie was bad, what if he's good now? That's the movie. And like the premise here is, what if like the relationship between a human and a Navi, but they're both evil now? And it's like this is somehow like far more interesting than like the sweet relationship at the center of Avatar. It's like, not I can fix her, I can make her worse. It's like such a really, and you know, I don't think Cameron is deconstructing this problematic stereotypes of Avatar, the Dances with Wolves stuff, but I do think that there is an element of like, just by switching that up, you make the movie more interesting. And very, very quickly before I wrap up then, three ones very quickly. Giant, which is the Prince Nassim Hamed movie, which is not great, unfortunately, alas. Stars Pierce Brosnan. I do want to say, as an Irishman who can't do an Irish accent, it's good to see myself represented on screen. Pierce Brosnan, the most unconvincing Irishman ever to appear on screen. It is, for those who are not aware, Prince Nassim Hamed is like a featherweight boxer who revolutionized boxing in the 1990s by like making featherweight boxing like appealing and selling it to the masses. An incredible talent, generally seen as like one of the great talented boxers who never lived up to his potential. This is a story about his much like Springsteen Deliver Us from Nowhere, this is a story about the importance of a good manager, where like the central character of this movie is not like Nassim Hamed himself, but his manager, Brendan Ingle, played by Pierce Brosnan. There's an extended sequence in which Pierce Brosnan explains to a 5-year-old kid the importance of a manager and how hard it is to be a manager and how a manager is going to invest 20 years of his time. So surely he deserves like 25% of the net profits. It is produced, by the way, by the manager's family, and there's a little bit of a skew there going on, as you could say.
Perfect.
This is the fakest looking movie I've ever seen. This looks like the version of the Smashing Machine that was released to coincide with the Smashing Machine, but you can get from Blockbuster. Yeah.
It's the Asylum version. It's the breaking.
This is the smushing machine.
Yeah, the smushing machine. Listen, I'd watch that.
All right, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Before. And I'm sorry. Every once in a while. I'm sorry to interrupt. Every once in a while, I don't know why this is. Discord mutes for me, but I can still see the waveform. And so I did interrupt you, Darren. I noticed you talking. Can I hear you now?
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I have to leave now. And so...
you just wanted to make a very dramatic. Your Discord is fine. You just wanted to be like, listen, I'm leaving now, and I want everyone to know.
But then I saw Darren's mouth moving, and I need to explain that sometimes Windows 11 mutes Discord. You guys can keep going. Goodbye, everybody. I love you all. I literally have to hang up now. So goodbye.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Merry Christmas. God bless us, everyone.
Wait,
Merry
we're
Christmas,
not done
Darren.
yet. You're still working, Darren. We're still
Darren, you're still working. I'm out.
We're not done. Just we don't have to pick up children.
What if I pretend that I'm jammed? Bye, Jack.
Damn it. Bye, Jack. Giant. Literally, this feels like a fake movie. This is insane.
By True Brit Entertainment, which is a real company that actually exists, I believe. Like it's not good. It looks like it was shot for $20. It kind of does have like the effect of we're shot the same gym from multiple angles. There's a weirdly distracting forehead prosthetic on Pierce Brosnan for a lot of the old age scenes.
Yeah.
To give the movie some credit, to say something I liked about it, Toby Stephens, who was with Pierce Brosnan in Die Another Day, gets a frankly incredible sequence in this movie where he plays like the promotional manager, and he takes them on a tour of his country mansion, and he sits down with a glass sifter of brandy. He's lit by the fire beside him as he leans back in the leather chair. The camera begins to pan slowly in on Toby Stephens' face. Speak Unto Nations by Beethoven, which listeners may recognize as like the backing music from the King's speech as the King gives the eponymous speech, plays in the background as Toby Stephens talks about how I have seen the future of boxing, and it's not those old men in suits. It's lads' mags, Adidas tracksuits, boys wearing earrings. It's chippers and late night television. It's the big breakfast. It's tabloids. It's Page 3. And the camera just keeps panning in as he predicts the descent of British culture in the 1990s through the lens of boxing. And I'm like, is this the best movie I've seen all year? And unfortunately, it continues for like 40 minutes after that. But I will say, like, to give the movie credit, that is a moment where I'm like, I am leaning in and I'm engaged in that. That is what the movie should be. Very quickly, just to run through two more. Song Sung Blue, which is the Neil Diamond cover band biopic movie.
God damn it. I wish Jack was here, because isn't that in Wisconsin? Isn't there a big Wisconsin part of it? Like, Hugh Jackman was in Milwaukee at like dive bars, like pouring beers for people a few weeks ago on like a press tour.
Sorry, I should have prioritized that, but I'm sorry. It's fine. It's perfectly adequate. It's Craig Brewer, who's the guy who did Dolomite Is My Name, the Netflix movie with Eddie Murphy, which is maybe Eddie Murphy's last great performance. And like Song Sung Blue has the same sort of energy where like Dolomite Is My Name works because it's Eddie Murphy, who is an actor who you know can be good, but who like has decided to phone it in for most of his career. He's the anti-Adam Sandler, where it's just like, I can get paid for doing this. That's great. I don't even have to try. So like Dolomite Is My Name is watching him try, and so you have this emotional arc of like a bunch of people who love making movies. It's the same reason that like Bowfinger works, where it's like, what if, hear us out, Eddie Murphy loved making movies? And you're like, that's a fantasy. That's a world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where Eddie Murphy likes making movies. Yeah. And the thing about like Song Sung Blue is that like it has Hugh Jackman in it, who is this guy who, by all accounts, should be a movie star. He's incredibly charismatic. He's incredibly talented. He can sing. He can dance. He can act. He's a triple threat. He seems like a lovely, lovely guy, and people generally like him. And he has made great movies. But he is not a movie star because that doesn't really exist. And Song Sung Blue is about this guy who is a Neil Diamond impersonator, where his job is to put on a silly costume and play the hits. And so you have him played by Hugh Jackman, who is a guy who, at this stage of his career, is now apparently just being paid to put on the costume and play the hits. And it has this kind of like element of kind of pathos and sweetness to it, where it's like, but maybe that's enough. Like maybe
Yeah.
we as a culture should be happy for Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman should be happy where he is, and he gets to make movies, and it's a miracle that movies exist. It's a miracle that art exists, that you can do this in the current climate. I found it really sweet. It's not great. It doesn't really contain a lot of surprises. It hits all of the beats that you expect it to. Like Dolomite Is My Name. It's a nice, pleasant movie. It's nice core, is the thing. It's like a nice, warm
core.
movie.
I like that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's a very soothing, very easy watch, which is nice. And then Marty Supreme, which I saw today, which feels like we like not the one to bring up in the final 2 minutes of the show.
Yeah, and I'm sure this is one we'll talk about more probably on our first show of the
when
new year.
People have actually seen it.
Yeah. But did you enjoy it?
I had a really great time with it. Really loved it. It is like, I think, is it David Ehrlich described as one paddle after another. But it is such like, it is a great American movie, and I don't mean that in terms of quality. I think it is great, but it is a great American movie in the same way as, say, The Brutalist or One Battle After Another or Sinners or whatever, where it is like a movie about America. It is this movie about, for listeners who don't know, it's Timothée Chalamet is coming for that Oscar, and like it is so funny that he lost to Adrian Brody last year for The Brutalist, and Marty Supreme is kind of like The Brutalist but with ping pong, where it is another story about like post-war America, the Jewish experience, one generation removed from Auschwitz, and the balance that you have to make trying to be an artist to create like work in the capitalist system, where it is the story of Marty Bowser, who wants to be like a ping pong player, who believes that he can be like the greatest ping pong player of his generation, but nobody believes in him, and having to like hustle and lie and cheat and manipulate in order to get to where he believes that he is destined to be, and obviously falls afoul of like evil businessmen along the way. Like there are some specific parallels with The Brutalist that are almost like comedic, which we will talk
this
about.
Was almost like a Deep Impact Armageddon situation.
Yeah, it really does feel that way at times. Like there's a moment in the third act where something happens and I'm like, oh wow, like it's like, yeah, okay, I didn't see you having that exact twist, but good for you, I guess. But I will say I really liked it. A lot of the promotional material is focused on the third act, so I was very pleasantly, it's the first act, so I was very pleasantly surprised once the movie gets over a lot of what you've seen in the trailers and kind of becomes what it really is. It is a movie that is, not to get too deep into it, but kind of like about the idea of like American exceptionalism and American decline, and the idea that like, was American culture doomed in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War? Like, so much of this movie is, obviously it's set in the 1950s, it unfolds in 1952. The soundtrack, which is absolutely brilliant, like obviously the soundtrack that they use includes like Tears for Fears, for example, Peter Gabriel, a lot of 80s.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Which is a really interesting choice. And a lot of the ambient soundtrack and score is kind of 80s synth-esque. There's a lot of heavy synth stuff going on. Reminds me a lot of The Brutalist. The Brutalist had a sort of a similar sensibility running through it as well.
Yeah.
Which kind of gives you this interesting dissonance where it's about the 50s, but it's also about the 80s. And also you have like Kevin O'Leary playing the bad guy in it, where O'Leary is this North American business mogul who also became a massive right-wing populist like politician figure, not to evoke anybody in particular.
No idea what that could be about.
What could that possibly be referencing? But it ends up being this kind of like mishmash of, it's a movie about the 50s, but it's a movie about the 80s, but it's a movie about now. And it's about this kind of tension that exists in like the American character of like consequences. And again, one of the things that I kind of love about movies in general, I always love when it happens in movies, I love it about this movie in particular, is like the idea of consequence, where characters do something and the movie is effectively like a domino effect of like tragedy and consequence of like, you made a mistake and now you are going to pay for it. Again, we mentioned like Catholic guilt. It is something that I think pops up a lot in the cinema of like Jewish filmmakers, like for example the Coens or Ari Aster as well. They talk about this idea of like guilt and shame and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Where like so much of like what is great about Marty Supreme, which is a very explicitly Jewish movie, to the point where like he steals a brick from the pyramids. He looks for a dog named Moses. There's a story about surviving Auschwitz in it as well. Like it is very explicitly a movie about the Jewish experience in America. But like so much of the movie is like Marty does something which benefits him in like the 30 seconds after he does it, and he ends up paying for it for the next 2 hours, which is the kind of cinema that I love. Reminds me a lot of Uncut Gems, which is, I was
about to say, Uncut Gems and Good Time both had a very similar sort of structure to that. Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting when like directors split, because obviously this is Josh Safdie, like, and it is interesting that like I would have bet the house on Benny having like the juice coming out, because it's coming out of like The Curse and having the public persona. But it is so interesting, like, when you watch the Coen brothers movies after the Coen split, and you come out of you come out of like Drive Away Dolls, and you're immediately like, I know which Cohen is responsible for the sex chair, in like Burn After Reading. Like 3 minutes into Marty Supreme, I'm like, I know exactly which Sad-Free brother was responsible for the choice to open Uncut Gems inside Adam Sandler's colon.
Yeah,
where it's like
with the colonoscopy.
Yeah, where I'm like, I know exactly like which one of the two of them had the brainwave of let's do that. And like it is really interesting because obviously I saw The Smashing Machine. I think The Smashing Machine is fine. I think it's a perfectly solid movie.
Yeah, so did I.
Marty Supreme is the one that feels more like Uncut Gems to me. It's the one that feels more like a Safdie movie or a Safdie movie that I liked. I really, really like this movie. It's in my top 10 for the year. I'm looking forward to seeing it again, unpacking it. It moves. It's like 2.5, nearly 3 hours long, and it just breezes by because it has this incredible propulsive quality to it. Reminds me a lot, again, of One Battle After Another, where it is this thing that looks like it should be academic. It looks like it should be like weighty and heavy and serious, and it is about things, but it also is incredibly propulsive. And like Chalamet is an actor who I like a lot. And he is an actor who, again, to bring back the comparisons to One Battle After Another, he has that Leo thing of like trying, where you can see how hard he is working. And it's like, I get that is off-putting for some people. And to be honest, there are some performances where that doesn't work. But the entire like premise of Marty Supreme is this idea, this American dream of like, if I will it, it will come. If I fake it, I won't have to make it.
Yeah,
and it kind of works. It's like he is so sweaty. It is like literally one of the sweatiest movies I've ever seen. I love that.
I remember I was reading stories about how he learned to become like a ping pong pro, and he had like a table in like on the set of Dune. And he's like, I'm just gonna keep practicing here.
I love the idea of Zendaya running lines by him as he's playing ping pong. But and again, like it works so well because, and again, we'll talk about it more when we talk about it in like when everybody's seen it. But like, this is a movie, obviously, we mentioned The Brutalist as a point of comparison, but it is a movie about art, and it is a movie about, like, making movies explicitly. It is a movie about, like, creating something memorable culturally under capitalism. And those movies tend to be, understandably, very serious. The Brutalist is Brutalist is funny at times, but it's a very serious, very heavy movie.
It's not a good hang,
Marty Supreme is kind of, like, I kind of love that it, like, is about all that and is entirely serious about that. But because it's about ping pong, there is a sense of the movie not being so self-important, it becomes insufferable. Like, where it's like, Marty Man's like, I was put on this earth to do one thing. And it's like, is the one thing to play ping pong? Because it feels like, you know, maybe that doesn't have to be the most important thing in the world, Marty.
Yeah. Was that game you invented when you were born?
And it's incredibly charming. And I liked it a lot. And it has a sense of humor and for all that it is grim and dark and gritty, and it is bleak and depressing at times, it is also like energetic and fun and playful in a way that like I like these movies to be. I had a really good time with it. I'm still processing it. I haven't entirely landed.
You literally saw it today, right?
I literally saw it this morning.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I'm very much looking forward to that. I think that comes out on Christmas.
Yeah.
Why?
For you guys. I think it's New Year's for us. But yeah, Christmas.
Oh, gotcha. So does it count as a 2025 movie? 2026?
I think it may count for both. Like my end year thing is like do both.
I like it. So it could be the best movie of 2 years in a row.
Yeah, well, they tend to go up and down is the thing, which is really interesting. Because it'll be like, Real Pain last year was in my top 20. Now it's on the cusp of my top 10.
Oh, I like it.
This year's movies were bad or what? I think some of them go down as well. Like it's really. It's a really cool thing to reassess at the end of like.
Oh, I think lists like that are kind of like living objects. They change as you change.
Yeah, I think like an Iron Claw is another one that crept up where it like went from being 8 the year that like it released in America to being like 4 in the year it released in Ireland. Simply because I've been like I sat with that and really fucking loved it. Tar, I think, is another one where it went kind of like because I had enough time. And there are other examples where it trends down. Where you're like, it wasn't as good the second time, or now I've had time to think about it in the cold light of day.
Sometimes I'll go back to lists I made. What was the Tully? The Jason Reitman movie Tully? Whenever I saw it, I was like, this movie's fucking great. And I made a list that year, and it was like maybe like 10 to 15. And then like I revisit that list, I'm like, what was going on here? Like, why did I do that?
I think Darren's tastes are great. The Muppets was the second best movie of 2012. The same year the Actor was released. Who's to say these things?
There's no way one of these will withstand the test of time. It'll be fine. Excellent. Let's roll through the last couple super chats. John Arbuckle with a €2 dono. Thank you so much. Please name your favorite Spider-Man arcs and villains, comics only. I've not read very many Spider-Man comics, so this is more of a you question. Are you a big Spider-Man comics guy?
Yeah, I mean, I have the whole collection back there. I mean, look, the obvious one is to go for some of the early ones like Spider. But first of all, the Lee Ditko run as a whole is kind of incredible as an object, and again is just like perfect comics. Ditko is a completely insane human being, but the combination of himself with like Stan Lee leads to like really great comics that actually hold up really well. Of the Silver Age like runs, Spider-Man is probably the most accessible, and I think like maybe that is one of my favorite like Spider-Man runs as a whole. I mean, you can point to like the obvious ones, like the Kid Who Collected Spider-Man. I love Peter David's, I think it's Peter David, as Thus Enter the Commuter, in which Spider-Man chases a like robber into the suburbs. Like he takes the train out into the suburbs of New York.
Good.
And it's like, because there are no skyscrapers, he has to chase the guy through these like small suburban housing estates, which is just an incredible like comic. The obvious ones, like I think Roger Stern's Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut is a great run. I really liked sorry, stop me by the way when I
No, please. This is people like Comic Book Corner.
But like the Gauntlet, which I think came at the end of the Brand New Day, which is coming off the end of like One More Day. But the Gauntlet, which is really good, leading into Grim Hunt. I really like that kind of nice run of comics. I'm a big fan of just Gauntlet comics in general, which is the idea of pitting an entire superhero against the Rogues Gallery, because that's just a really fun, accessible way to like make, to recommend to somebody, because like you'll find one of the stories in here that you like, and they're by a bunch of different writers, and they're working with a bunch of different characters, and you're getting all these villains reimagined. Obviously, the big one is Bendis's Ultimate Spider-Man, which I absolutely love.
One of the few I've actually read.
But really accessible, really easy to run, and a really great jumping on point. One of the first comics that I read. Again, maybe a bit decompressed, maybe a bit slow, but reads really well in the collected edition. Recently, really liked Hickman's run on Ultimate Spider-Man, or Ultimate Comics Spider-Man, which is the reboot of the Ultimate Universe in which Spider-Man is a dad and he has a family. And he spends like, it's basically, and again, the Ultimate Comics, we could talk about separate conversation, but the formal hook there is that it unfolds in real time. So every month of the comics is a month in real time.
Oh, that's cool.
It has a really different structure than most comics where, an arc takes place over a night or whatever. Every month in the comics is a month in real time. And it means also that the cliffhangers have to be different, because you can't have a cliffhanger that's like, oh my God, it's the 31st. It's 11:58 on the 31st of the month. I really hope Vulture doesn't drop through the window.
And then the next one begins with like, oh yeah, beat the shit out of Vulture like 4 weeks ago. Yeah.
4 weeks ago. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's coming up to the end of the month again. Everything always happens at the end of the month. So it means that the cliffhangers have to be really interestingly structured, where you have to have like an ending that can't be the classic, oh my God, look who burst through the door. Or, oh my God, look at this shock reveal. It has to be like and this is a problem that will take a month to solve, or this is a problem that we will be dealing with for weeks.
Yeah. So and it's interesting if it is dealing with him and having starting a family and everything, like those things would age like month by month. You'd be like, oh, this is changing rapidly. Because kids do that.
Well, kids are growing up. Well, again, the arc is like the idea is that the Ultimate Universe started later than the regular universe for reasons we don't need to go into. But it's the idea of like, it's kind of like the Absolute line in DC at the moment, which is also great. But it's this idea of like the missed moment. It's a very millennial comic book where it's like, what if you were promised like the best life that you ever had? What if you were told that you were going to be superheroes and rock stars and superstars, and it never actually happened?
Yeah.
What if you never got the utopian future that was promised to you? And those Ultimate Comics and the Absolute Comics are about like, but now you're trying to get it back and you're angry. So it's like Peter Parker never got to be Spider-Man, so he married Mary Jane, he had 2 kids, and then he discovers that he should have been Spider-Man all along. And it's about like this idea of, what does that mean? What does it mean to discover that the life that you led was a lie? And obviously, there are metaphors that are coded in that. There are ways of reading that. There's some really great trans critics who've written really good articles on like that as a metaphor for like body dysmorphia and discovering that you're not who you thought you were. But it's also just like a universal feeling of like, am I living the life that I was meant to live? And it's just, it's really great. Sorry, apologies for the ramble. Those are the ones.
That was good. I like it. Wait, so do you have one gun to your head? Do you have a favorite member of the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery? Is it just like a boring? Okay, I was going to be like, is it a boring Green Goblin? Not that that's a bad one. That's being like, my favorite Batman villain's a Joker. Like, that's fine.
But the thing about Green Goblin is incredible in the Ditko run, and then like just keeps coming back. He keeps dying and coming back, and it's like he's insane. And like the best Green Goblin comics ever written are the like Bendis Avengers comics, inexplicably, where like he makes Norman Osborn the head of the Dark Avengers, and it's just like, what if a middle managing bureaucrat was in charge of like the Avengers, but also he had a dark alternate personality that was a supervillain.
And like Tony Stark, he has a bottomless pocketbook, so he can, he can fund this thing.
It is like, again, it was published in 2008. It's a none too subtle commentary on the Bush era, where it's like, what if we put like Norman Osborn, a psychotic supervillain, in charge of national defense?
Yeah.
Can you imagine how crazy that would be?
Oh, that would never happen. It's fine.
And it's really interesting to reread that in like 2025, where it's like, also he was a New York business mogul who everybody knew was completely insane, but the country chose to put him in that position of power. And it's like, this has never happened. This is
once again, no idea what they could be referencing. No idea. There you go. Double the fingers with a €5 dono. Thank you so much. Our world is broken, unjust, ruled by ghouls, and likely doomed, but the goofs are good. So really, who can say if things are good or bad? Listen, it's a great point. That's all we have left. All we have left is the goofs and the art, and we should enjoy the art while we still can. So
I think it's a problem that I look at like apocalypses in Pulp Fiction and it's very in popular fiction. I'm like, I really wish that we lived in the Terminator future. Yeah, where it's like I feel like the apocalypse we're going to get is going to be so much lamer than the opening scene of Terminator.
Yeah, because 50% of the people are going to be they're going to disagree over whether the robots are the bad guys, whereas in Terminator they're like, yeah, they're the bad guys. They're bad.
They're literally crushing human skulls under their feet.
Yeah, it's like, the first time we see them.
They need to walk. Maybe the skulls shouldn't be there. Did anybody ask
the skulls were fake news? Yeah. Maybe the skull shouldn't be there. PT with a $2 dono. Thank you so much. Another Tubi nomination. Go see Sholay.
Yes.
I've never seen. This is like an Indian epic from like the 70s.
An Indian Western. Again, I have very limited knowledge of Indian cinema, but Sholay is incredible.
Okay.
Sholay is really good. It's the oldest Indian film I've seen. I think the next oldest one is probably Lagan, which is also incredible. Just incredible. I think they call it masala cinema, where the idea is because Indian cinemas are large amphitheaters where everybody goes, every movie has to be everything. It's not a multiplex, so you can't like take the kids and send the kids to go see a kids movie while mom and dad go to see their own movie and grandpa goes see a Clint Eastwood. It's like you go to an Indian cinema and you're all seeing the same movie. So every movie has to have everything in it.
Yeah,
and it's
everything is an all quadrant movie.
Yeah, that's it exactly. So there's a bit of rom-com in there. There's a bit of thriller in there. There's a serious social issue drama. There's romance. There's 6 songs and a musical number.
Yeah.
Sholay is really good. I really, really love Sholay.
That's great. I'm gonna have to add that to the list.
I would recommend that. And the Gan as well. And Hadun, Tumbad. Yeah, like a whole bunch.
Love Tumbad. That's one of the rare ones you can bring up. I'm like, oh fuck, Tumbad was great. It was really good. Kid Barchetta with a $2. Kid Barchetta, thank you so much for a $2 dono. What is your philosophy when it comes to reviewing? That seems like a scary big question.
I don't know that I have a philosophy. I mean, again, a large part of my influence would be Ebert, and Ebert's big thing was try to meet a movie where it is, like try to understand what a movie is doing and why it's doing it. And that doesn't mean like grading it on a curve of like, well, it's trying to do something evil and it does the evil thing well, therefore it's a good movie.
Yeah.
But it is like trying to engage with what it's doing and what it's about and how it's doing it. So like not being upset that I don't know, Thunderbolts doesn't deal with like what the radioactive half-life of, Sentry is or whatever. Understanding that it's a metaphor and it's that sort of thing, but we're understanding that like Tar is a serious drama and so it's dealing with these things. That is generally what my philosophy is trying to understand what a movie is doing it and kind of assessing it relative to that.
Yeah.
I
think things that help is
sometimes what a movie is doing is bad as well.
Oh yeah.
Like I feel like
absolutely.
If a movie is trying not to do something, it is a problem as well, to be fair.
Yeah. It's helpful when you don't have to do something like assign a number or a grade. Because I think that is so reductive and that's just what people look at. And that's why people always get mad at IGN reviews because they have to put a number at the bottom because that's the people just want to see the number, but then they just get mad at the number and don't read the text. And it's like, well, what are you doing? Like, what's the point of any of this? You saying something is an 8 out of 10 isn't helpful in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing where it's like ratings are insane, where it's like, I think I give like Wicked for Good 3 stars. And we talked about like Wicked for Good, where I'm like, that movie does not work at all. I would not recommend it. It is like a dysfunctional movie, but it is interesting in its dysfunction. And it's like the things that it's trying to do are so fascinating and so odd and so contorted and so weird that I am like in that Benoit Blanc sense in Knives Out. Don't understand it, but I am compelled.
It compels me. Yeah.
Compels me. It compels me. Like, and that is an honest, instinctive response. Wicked for Good is not a good movie, but it compels me, and it's like that is worth something to me.
Yeah.
I
absolutely.
watch lots of bad movies that do not compel me, that do not make me sit in my chair and go, "What is? Why is it like this? What is it doing? And how is it doing it?
What happened here?" Yeah.
Yeah, like and like as you say, like picking through the entrails and trying to figure it out, and like, and that is its own separate thing. Like the same thing with like we mentioned Fire and Ash, where like Fire and Ash to me has the same score as Avatar and the same score as like Way of Water, which is 3 stars. But those 3 stars are wildly different because like Way of Water is like a consistently fine movie, and Fire and Ash is a movie that is alternatively wildly insane and also heavily derivative and somehow averages out. Like, yeah, numbers are insane. Like trying to assign number values to art or even to your opinion of art is insane to me.
And the same thing goes for but the same thing goes for when we talk about the Oscars or the Game Awards or the Golden Globes or anything. Like saying the sentimental value is better than one battle after another is like, well, these are silly. Like we still do this because that's how we compare things, but it's silly.
You can watch both. Like it's not.
Yeah,
time isn't that finite. Time isn't.
Listen, we are all dying, but you probably have time to sneak in a couple movies.
We're all creeping. I wonder, like, is there a point when I get to like 55 when I'll have to be picky about what I watch?
And then do you own no more new movies? I only have to watch. I can only rewatch movies I've rated 4.5 stars or higher.
Yeah. Yeah, like that is like I was watching Giant and I was like, am I gonna regret wasting these 2 hours of my life? Like, is there gonna be
hit a point to be like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't go to the new SpongeBob movie. Maybe I'll just skip this one. Maybe I have nothing to say about this.
Inexplicably the first SpongeBob movie I've ever seen.
But it won't be the last. As you just become a big SpongeBob guy. Like that's how I spent my holiday. Sussy Guru with a €10 dono. Thank you, Sussy Guru. Whenever Benoit Blanc says, I can't solve this case, to me it returned to his first scene where he says that he wants to solve it in a way that doesn't make him choke in disgust rather than him being stumped. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, the thing about the Knives Out movies, which are so great and which I love so much, is that they're, and you say deconstruction and people get defensive because it's like, oh, you're picking it apart, you hate it. No, you deconstruct something because you love it. It's like trying to take something apart, figure out how it works is an act of love. It's like picking it apart and understanding how the mechanics fit together is like something you do when you obsess over something.
And Rian Johnson clearly loves these. Like, if you hear him talk about Agatha Christie, like clearly some of his favorite shit.
Yeah. And obviously, like, these are heavily indebted to Christie. Like, the social commentary is very Christie-esque inspired. And again, a lot of, like, Christie stuff is also subversive of the format of the murder mystery. But the thing about, like, the Knives Out movies, which is so great, is that, like, they're kind of about the limitations of, like, the whodunit, where it's, like, the first movie is about this idea of he can't be an objective observer. At a certain point, he starts out like listening in the background. He starts out like listening to people talk, pretend I'm not here at all, etc., etc. But by the end of the movie, he has decided that he is entirely representative of Marta's interests.
Yeah.
He decides that, like, regardless of what the facts show, regardless of what the evidence presents, Marta is innocent and Marta is right, and justice is served by protecting Marta, because you have to respond with empathy. Forensic evidence can tell the truth with a forked tongue or whatever, or that line where it's like, as I get older, I learn it's not about the facts, it's about what you do with the facts that matters. Glass Onion is about this idea of, like, the universe is so stupid, and like the conspiracies that we live in are so obvious, and the people who are evil are so transparently evil that it is reductive or pointless to be the person who figures out how to solve it. Solving it doesn't do anything. You have to burn the whole place down. That is the only way to solve this. The bit where he's like, this is the end of my jurisdiction. Like, to have a murder mystery that ends with the detective going, well, I figured it out, but there's really nothing.
But I can't do anything at this point. Like, I did my job, and that's all I could do.
Yeah, and
but
like,
then you could give it a little push over the edge to be like, well, if you want to burn this place down, I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah, you don't have to return the next movie, Janelle Monáe.
I can look the other way. Yeah,
and then, like, not to spoil Wake Up Dead Man, but Wake Up Dead Man has a very similar denouement where it's like he reaches the point where you expect the movie to reach, and he just kind of pulls back because he's like, does me doing this accomplish anything?
Yeah.
Does, like, and not in like a literal sense where it would accomplish the very literal act of solving the case, but in an existential moral sense, does it resolve anything?
Yeah.
Does it, like, make anything right? Is it the Auden, W.H. Auden, the critic, who argued that like the thing about detective stories is the detective recognizes the fault in a world, and by recognizing the fault allows it to be healed. So like the detective shows up and he realizes what the source of corruption is, or villainy, or evil is, and by pointing to it, the community can excise that element and the community can come together and heal, which I think is something that Johnson is very engaged with in all of his movies. And in like this movie in particular, there is an element of that, of like, does me pointing the finger at somebody, does that help the thing to heal? Does pointing the finger help the community to come together?
Yeah. And it's specifically in the three movies, it's the lead that he gloms onto. So whether it's Marta and Ana de Armas in the first one, Janelle Monáe in the second one, and then the Josh O'Connor character in this, and him just solving it would not give Josh O'Connor that kind of, not absolution, but that kind of
catharsis.
Yeah, catharsis or renewal of faith or anything, as opposed to the way he allows it to kind of, or it does play out eventually in the movie.
Well,
with
like there's the moment in Glass Onion, which is incredible, where like Edward Norton has had Gillian Flynn write this murder mystery for him, like this incredibly dense murder mystery. Like so much of like Glass Onion, which I kind of love. Like I know that people have cooled on Glass Onion a bit, but Glass Onion is like a movie that I really adore because it is like so pulling at those threads. But like Benoit Blanc is like sitting there playing Among Us. He's like, I don't get it. I don't understand. She's like, have you ever played Clue? You go room to room. I'm like, I don't like stupid things.
Hates it
so much. And it's like he hates the elements that make a detective story. The point where like Edward Norton is like, I have had Gillian Flynn write like a murder mystery in here. And like Benoit Blanc just like solves it in like 3 seconds by referencing a bunch of like statistical facts that don't matter at all and don't mean anything and just completely deflates the purpose of like the entire gathering. But the fact that it's like, does solving that solve anything? Does solving a mystery resolve anything is the question. And like, I like that that's a question that all three of those movies ask, like, which I love. And again, Christie asks it as well. I would point to the end of Murder on the Orient Express as like one of the great murder mystery endings where, slight spoiler for that, but like the ending of that movie is the detective going, well, I've solved the case, but I've still got no idea who's actually guilty. Like I've explained what's happened, but like, who's responsible? Where is the sin? Where is the crime? I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is like,
what did you think of the third Poirot movie? What was it? The spooky one.
The spooky one.
Something in Venice. Haunting in Venice. I liked it.
I really liked it. I did not like the first two. I did not care for the first two. I really didn't like them. Third one rocks. Like, and the third one is like, it is so insane that like the one for me, one for you thing exists for Branagh, but the one for them movie is like his like sentimental black and white Belfast Oscar prestige play about his childhood. But the one for him is the one where he like puts on a funny mustache and straps the Requiem for a Dream camera to himself as he runs through the haunted house. Like it's like he's really having the best time of his life. And there is an element of like, to that point about like what you review a film, meeting the film where it's at, where you're like, he knows what he's doing with this movie. And this is the one for me where he succeeds at doing what he's trying to do, which is to make a fun, accessible version of like a classic murder mystery that has a modern sensibility to it. I really like the third one. Did not care for the first two. Really like the third one.
Agree with you there. Death on the Nile is very bad. Like shockingly, alarmingly bad.
For a movie set in the desert, even I was not expecting that much dry humping.
I love it. Terrible movie. Sussy Guru with a €5 dono. Thank you so much, Sussy Guru. Whether an artist succeeds at conveying his message depends heavily on the audience's ability to understand. So there is a spectrum there. I think that's going back to Jack and I. And it's I
don't want to talk too much about that while Jack's not here, but there is an element of like, it's the Starship Troopers thing where it's like, if a certain portion of the audience doesn't get that it's satire, does that mean the movie's bad? And it's like, but if I understand it as satire, does that mean the movie's good? And there's the balancing of the two, you know?
Sure. Yeah. And it's also, honestly, it's almost like a cilantro thing. I think it's when you start dipping into kind of more experimental storytelling and modes of making a movie, I do think it is a taste thing. Like it is not, there is no right or wrong in that. I'm not right or wrong. Jack isn't right or wrong. So and
as you say, like I love David Lynch, but I would not recommend him. Like again, I've mentioned before, a second date movie was seeing David Lynch's Inland Empire, and I was amazed that there was a third page.
I would be shocked. Yeah, honestly, of all the David Lynch stuff, the most recommendable to me is the Straight Story. I'd recommend a Straight Story to almost anyone. Yeah,
right down the and like even the early Twin Peaks, like the classic Twin Peaks TV show for the first season is very accessible as well.
Yeah,
but it is like it. And again, that was a very nice suggestion from my date on that evening. To be clear, they were like, "You like David Lynch, right?" I'm like, yeah, sure." And I'm like, 3 hours later, we stumbled out into the light, and we're like, Okay, that was
So there's a girl in trouble. And what was the rest of the movie about? Yeah, Inland Empire is a tough hang even for me, and I love David Lynch.
Yeah, revisiting it is still a tough hang. Like I
Yeah.
appreciate what it's doing, but it's also, yeah, it's not an easy. It's advanced Lynch, and like
Yeah.
Lynch 101 is advanced Lynch. You know?
Oh no, that's to me when I watch Inland Empire, I'm like, oh, that's how a lot of people feel about Mulholland Drive or Lost Highway or Twin Peaks sees The Return, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So yeah, everyone has their own kind of line in the sand.
I like that Lynch, like presumably has a little metric there. It's just like ramp it up full.
Yeah,
it's like
he's got a dial and he's looking back at the audience. He's like, He put the dial to 0 for Dune, and he's like, "Oh no, okay, I got to get this dial back up. No one wants to be here for this."
Even Dune is not a 0 to be.
No, that is not. No, that is true. That is very true. In terms of other blockbuster movies, it is the dial turned to 11 to reference Rob Reiner. King Dad with a $2 dono. Thank you so much. My used DVD pen pal is the most Jack thing ever. I thought that was beautiful. I do want to dig a little bit more into that and see what other movies have been shared. And then PT, thank you so much. Should be our last owner with a $2 dono. A new season of The Pit in 2 weeks. Remember when TV used to do this? Remember when we could get you wouldn't forget what happened in between seasons? What a time to be alive. Yeah.
Released by Clockwork, released weekly. You know, it is still on the streaming service, but still potentially violating agreements with what happened with the Eeyore lawsuit, by the way? Do we know? Was that settled?
Was that ever resolved? Like, I don't know if that was just resolved and they were like, okay, we're happy now. We're fine. Like, it seems like a bigger thing would have been made of it, especially, I don't know, maybe come award season, we'll hear more about it when the Emmys and the Golden Globes roll around. Maybe those will bubble back up. But yeah, I'm happy to have The Pit coming back. Happy that Pluribus is still kicking. Let me tell you. I know Pluribus, another thing people are saying, oh, this is a little too slow. I'm like, nope, this is perfect. This is perfect. You are giving me some real television right now.
As somebody whose like favorite part of Breaking Bad was like the montages of Mike taking part of car. Yep. I'm like all in on this. This is exactly what I want.
The last, I think episode 7 was the last one. The following kind of the now seemingly new leads. Just fucking killer stuff. Also, that show is unbelievably gorgeous. Like, deeply gorgeous. Yeah, please. And I'm glad to hear somehow they said that's the biggest Apple show ever. Bigger than Ted Lasso and Severance, which seems insane, but very happy for that.
And it has a second season confirmed, and he wants to run 4. So part of you like hoping that the first season is big enough that they can get the 4 greenlit, and it's like we don't have to worry about. You know? Yeah,
and you could just make it and not have any pressure. Oh well, season 2 didn't perform as well as season 1. Just let you tell that story.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's it. We did it. See, Jack got to pick up his kids on time. no problem.
Leaving.
No problem there. Darren, what do you have going on? What should folks check out? Obviously, the latest episode of the Backdrop went up earlier today. If you want a much deeper dive into the Netflix Warner Brothers stuff we talked about earlier.
Yeah, had a really, really good time making that. Again, just one of those things where it is kind of depressing, but also kind of a nice. It's one of those pitches that evolved in real time, because not to jump too far behind, the lead process on these is about 2 weeks. So I'll begin pitching for January at the end of the month or whatever. But it's like when we began, there was just like Warner Brothers is being bought, and it's like, let's just do a video about, and you can tell when you watch the video of like, let's look at what makes Warner Brothers unique and what makes it distinct from other studios, because losing a major studio is bad in the abstract. Losing that many releases and a potential buyer and like a source of media in the industry is bad just in general, but also losing a specific studio means losing a specific character. And so the original pitch was going to be much more of, let's talk about what makes Warner's unique, and let's talk about what we lose when Warner Brothers goes away, no matter who buys it. And then obviously halfway through the process of developing that idea, it becomes clear that it's actually Netflix who have bought, and that then shifts the tone of the video. So it was really interesting, again, just to evolve in kind of real time and kind of adapt as it goes. I really proud of it. I think it turned out really well. Shout out to Jesse for helping me on that as well, by the way. That was a very crunched development due to, as listeners will have noticed at the start of the episode, my roof caving in on me. That was the kind of, we rushed to get that across the finish line. So huge shout out to Jesse for his help on that one as well.
I think it turned out really well. So glad folks are checking that out. And of course, you could check out Darren's columns on the Patreon at the $5 tier and above. Usually one drops on Monday and one drops on Fridays. So there you go. Check those out. Always delightful. In terms of other stuff here, streaming wise, we should have no more Second Wind streams today. I'll probably be back in a few hours on my personal stream checking something out. Tomorrow we'll have Yahtzee Tries, and Casey and I will be back in the evening. Thursday, more Firelink. And Friday, or I believe Saturday, they're planning the last stream before we close up shop. I will not be here for that, so but I believe that's starting around 11 a.m. Central. So tune in for that. And then we should, over the break, we'll have videos going up, like we mentioned, those kind of roundup videos of some of our favorites, movies and games. Those will be going up over the break. A couple video essays, all sorts of fun stuff. Yahtzee's normal stuff. So tune in.
Might be getting a backdrop up over there. And I'm not making any promises given the roof situation, but we'll see how it goes.
Probably worry about as long as the roof's fine.
That's fine.
I would worry about the roof first. Yeah. But thank you so much everyone who tuned in live for this beefy episode on YouTube, anyone listening on your podcast service of choice, and anyone who donated and supports us on Patreon. We really appreciate that. And
Jack's
thank you so much.
Got picked up from school on time.
Jack's children, thanks to them for getting picked up and for hopefully not waiting too long. And Eric, thank you so much as always for producing.
Yes.
So for Darren, Jack, and Marty, this was the Rewind episode number 36. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your holiday season and 2025, and we'll see you in the new year. Bye, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.